He hasn't done that. But first and foremost, at this moment in time, I would be my number one would be his own personal welfare.
That is obviously massively important, but he can do both, can't he? He can apologise and he can have the counselling. And in a funny way, that apology could be quite an important part of the counselling. If he apologises to the Arsenal fans, gets himself back in the team, goes and plays well and scores a winner next weekend, they'll be cheering his name. And wouldn't that go quite a long way towards repairing some of that damage?
Yeah, although there is a point, Johnny, that he might think, oh, I don't want to play for Arsenal anymore.
Yeah,
I've
I
had
think
enough.
you're right.
I've had enough. I'll prefer to go back and play in Switzerland. My national team captain he is. Maybe go back to Switzerland, have a bit of an easier life, not earn so much money as what he's probably currently earning at Arsenal, and have a nicer life. Not have all that pressure and stress that he's currently under as captain. And he ain't a great player, in my opinion. He's a good player, but he ain't a great player. You know, he's not one of the best, is he, that Arsenal have got. But he's certainly got something about him. And I think I agree with you 100% there, Johnny. I think the first thing he should do is apologise to the whole football club, the owner, the manager, his fellow teammates, and of course, most importantly, the paying public do not want to see that when they've paid so much money to go and watch a match.
Well, Xhaka's manager Unai Emery has come out publicly and urged the midfielder to do just that ahead of tonight's League Cup tie at Liverpool. Let's hear what Emery had to say.
I think when we make individually some mistakes and when we need to make apologies for one circumstance, I prefer to do, and we suggest him to do.
Martin, I've never been managed by you in a footballing context. I actually really would like to be. I think it would be a fascinating and genuinely helpful experience. But I can tell from speaking to you over this summer that you are both a sensitive manager who appreciates his players as people, appreciates the emotional strain that their job has on them, but also isn't afraid to crack the whip. So I need you to put me to rights on this one. I look at this as an Arsenal fan and go, I'm sorry, Unai Emery, you are in charge of that football club. Go to his house, knock on his door, by all means give him a hug and check if he's okay, but tell him to apologise. Say, I am sorry, we pay your wages, you are the club captain, go out there and say sorry. Can the manager not force him to do that?
No, you can't force anyone to do anything, Johnny. You know, all people, whether we're at Love Sport or wherever, you start telling people what they've got to do. I don't think that actually works. It's got to come from the own person. You give them an explanation as to your thinking, as to why you need to explain to the Arsenal fans, why you need to explain to your teammates and to the owners of Arsenal, the bosses at Arsenal. You can't telling people, Johnny, I'm telling you, you do this. And first thing people do is like, yeah, right, see you later, and they're out the door, and they don't care what you're thinking. It's better, far better, Johnny, to explain that. Listen, big boy, you need to sit down. You've done a fantastic job. I love having you around the football club. You're a really popular person and a good person. Is his name Granite?
Granite.
You know, he's
Don't.
Granite.
Here we go.
He's a
Solid
rocky
as
character.
there he is. Martin's here all week, by the way.
And we've got to, we're going to have to work this out. What do you think, Granite? What do you think? And you ask him, and hopefully he will create his own pathway, and he will see a bit of light, and he'll have a sensible way of getting back, because he won't want to not be playing. He'll want to be involved somehow. I can't see a way that he's going to be captain, and everyone's sort of suggesting, and we had a discussion on Monday, David Luiz, I think at this moment in time, he would probably be the right person, I think, to step into that role as captain and lead that group of players, which I think he can do. I know he can be in a bit of erratic character, and he's not my favourite, that's for sure. But it would seem to me, in the middle of the pitch, right at the back there, he's won a World Cup, hasn't he? And he's won
David
the
Luiz.
Premier League.
He has won the Premier League and the Champions League.
So he's done some good stuff. It's not my favourite, I've got to say, again, repeat. No, it's a tough one. But I've got to say, Johnny, honestly, my first thought is making sure that the player is okay.
I think you are right, and you're causing me to soften on this, Martin. I can completely appreciate that the player's well-being has to come first, but equally, he has been pretty petulant here, and it goes beyond just taking the shirt off, dropping the armband, cupping his hands behind his ears, swearing at the fans. It goes and extends towards pettiness on social media as well, which is becoming a significant thing for players, both in terms of marketing, which we're going to be talking about later in the show with a social media expert, and also in terms of discipline, because we can see if they're misbehaving from their internet activity. He has changed his Instagram profile picture from Granit Xhaka in Arsenal colours to Granit Xhaka in Switzerland colours since this game. That's not a mistake. That is petty. That is petulant. That is saying, I don't care about you. I don't care about your football club. And I don't want to play for you. And for me as an Arsenal fan, I'm sorry, I don't like it.
No, 100% agree with you, Johnny. I think he's made an error doing that. I would say, yeah, I would 100% agree with you, a petulant error. But I have been out in the middle, not with 60,000, but I've had 30,000, I've had 25, 27,000 at West Ham. And when I wasn't playing well, they've hammered me. And the biggest crowd of the afternoon was when I was substituted and the substitute came on. Let's not kid ourselves. It wasn't always sweetness and light for me at West Ham, and those times are tough. And when you come back in, or you're sitting on the bench there, and you know you haven't played well, you start to doubt yourself, you worry, you go home, you don't sleep, you're petrified of, not petrified, wrong word, worried about the future. And if you're ever going to get back in and get back to your best, doing what you're good at, you do worry. He will be worried. He's made a mistake. He's made a poor judgment on that. What's it? Instagram.
Yeah.
You call it. He's made an error doing that. I'm sure his agent. I'm sure his agent will be getting into him, because once he leaves Arsenal, which he probably will now, in all fairness, then he probably won't earn as much money as what he's currently earning at Arsenal.
I think you're right. Now, listen, I've spent the first 10 minutes of the show having a pop at Granit Xhaka. You've done a very good job of defending him. But in the interest of balance, I'm going to switch my attention now, and I am going to pour a steaming bucket of rubbish over the Arsenal fans, because I have to say, at their worst, they are some of the most despicable football supporters in the whole of England. Footage has emerged of Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang stuck in traffic outside the Emirates after the Crystal Palace game, being hounded by the Arsenal fans. I mean, getting dog's abuse. Yes, he is in a very, very shiny chrome Lamborghini Aventador, but that is his prerogative. They are swearing at him. They are screaming at him. They're saying, we paid £2,000 a year to watch this rubbish. F off. Why are you shouting at Aubameyang? He has single-handedly got Arsenal Football Club 9 points so far this season with these goals. These people don't know who they hate. They don't know what they think. They just want a scrap, and they want to be rude to absolutely anybody they can. I think it's really unappealing.
Well, he's a good player, isn't he? He's a good player.
Aubameyang, top class.
Blimey, when I've seen him play, he's been brilliant. And it just goes to show, doesn't it? I went to Crystal Palace versus Man City. I think it was last Saturday, not this Saturday, just gone last Saturday. And Man City, as I said here at Love Sport, were absolutely superb, Johnny. Knocked the ball about. With the ball, they were brilliant. Without the ball, oh my God, they tackled and closed down so quick. And late in the second half, with Man City winning the game comfortably and keeping possession, all the Palace fans started singing, clapping and cheering their team. It was unbelievable, Johnny. The noise coming from the Palace fans, it was like, wow, that is magic. And it really was brilliant what those Palace supporters did. Unfortunately, they are in the minority now, because when your team's losing and not playing very well, more often than not, everyone starts shouting abuse at the manager. They leave and go home early, and they walk out saying the manager's got to be sacked. Oh, that is common. It's common, John. It ain't just Arsenal.
That's true, but you've used the key word there, which is supporter. You're an Arsenal fan, but you are also an Arsenal supporter. Support the team. One such Arsenal supporter is Michael, who's rung in from Croydon. Good afternoon, Michael. Thanks for your call. I gather you're not happy with Unai Emery and his role in all of this. What's it got to do with the manager?
Well, the manager is basically the one who starts everything and where the buck stops. He's the one that gave the option to the team to pick Granit as a captain. Now, he's come out now and said that he needs to go counselling and he's refusing to say sorry. So now he's got counselling because of that. Now, my eyes, like one of your reporters said earlier on, black players have been abused for God knows how long. But you've never seen them take their shirt off or cut their ears or do any of that. So, and the fact he's bringing Ozil to play today, just deflecting all of this madness that's going on between Granit, Unai Emery, the fans, the players. It's a total, I'm going to swear it, but it's totally, I don't know, I don't even know what to say, but we're not where we should be, and he's not the manager for Arsenal. Definitely not. He's not strong enough. He bottles out of things. His tactics are wrong. I mean, where do you want me to stop?
Michael, just let me ask you a couple of questions, if you don't mind. Michael, what's wrong with his tactics, Michael?
There is none. Can you tell me what we're trying to achieve under him? I don't know what.
Well, you go and watch.
are.
You go and watch, and you just said his tactics are wrong. So what is it you're not happy with?
There is no tactics. He's basically, the team he brings out is always wrong, and the substitutes he does is wrong. His gameplay is wrong. it's like everything he does. The players he should play, he doesn't. Ozil for $350 a week should be playing, even in the lesser games. He should even be playing. You can't just say, "Oh, right, he's not playing at all. He's not on the bench." He plays Granit when he hasn't really been. He's the most fouled player. Or he creates the most fouls, 22 so far, the highest in the Premier League.
Yeah.
But yet you still keep faith with him. And he said he doesn't see a reason to drop players that are performing. But he's not performing, so why is he still playing every week? You know, so it's things like that. And then, like I say, to actually give the team the choice to who's captain, I've never in my life heard of that before.
No, I'm with you there. I'm with you there, Michael.
You know?
Thank you ever so much for your call. Great to chat to you this afternoon. Michael from Croydon.
To be fair, he makes some good points.
Yeah, cracking points. Absolutely cracking points. And the lines are open on this today. If you want to be a part of the conversation, give us a ring on 0208 70 20 558 or WhatsApp us on the same number. Just make sure you include your name and where you're texting in from.
It's interesting. I played golf yesterday with a group of Arsenal fans. And afterwards at dinner, they were not happy. And I had about an hour and a half non-stop, every reason, everything they've done wrong. And then one of them had the ump because he wanted Arsene Wenger to go. And then he wanted a new manager to come in. The new manager's come in, and now he's got the ump. He wants him out, and he won't go till there's another new manager in. And I said to him in the end, well, you keep wishing. You keep wishing. It's non-stop negative. None of you ever talk about any of the positive. All you talk about is the negative of Arsenal Football Club. And surely you've got to give them some more time for both fullbacks, Bellerin and Tierney, and holding the centre-back to be fit once he gets that team together. And maybe you might be able to get, challenging back up there for that top 3, top 4, and back into the Champions League. None of them have had none of it, and they just shouted me down and said, "Shut up and go back to West Ham."
Well, and that was just because of his golf. Listen, we're going to be talking Xhaka and Arsenal throughout the show this afternoon. Coming up, we're talking Rugby World Cup final.
This is Love Sport.
Making small changes to your lifestyle could improve your chances of staying healthier longer. Start now by taking our free How Are You quiz. Just search 1U.
You're in leakage, you're in leakage. You're in leakage, you're in leakage. You're in leakage. You're in leakage, you're in leakage.
Tenna men. Pants and pads.
You're
Discreet. Masculine.
You're
Secure absorption zone. Buy online or in shops.
You're
Tenna men. Keep control.
urine.
No.
AsSpokesmanSaid.com is a leading price comparison website that allows you to compare every energy tariff on the market in seconds. We have more deals than any other comparison website offering energy prices, and our impartial independent switching service is free of charge. Nearly 50% of UK households have switched bills, and there are hundreds to be saved. Visit AsSpokesmanSaid.com, as recommended in The Guardian, The Times, and The Sun. AsSpokesmanSaid.com.
I love my brother. We do fun things like playing together. I like having hugs with Freddie. Freddie gives the best hugs. Freddie used to be very poorly, and the doctor said he might need a new liver. Then one day, a very nice person gave their liver to Freddie. It was amazing. We were so happy. Now he's around to give me more hugs than ever.
Tell your family you want to save lives. To find out more, visit organdonation.nhs.uk.
Brilliant, I've finally quit.
I can keep up with my kids now.
I feel like I've got my life back.
It's an amazing feeling when you stop smoking. Experience it for yourself with help from Smoke Free. Our range of free support can help you quit for good. From our app to emails, face-to-face and online communities. Search Smoke Free, because there's only one you.
Love sport.
We were fans of the Arsenal response to the England response to the hacker. Imagine Arsenal's response to the hacker. They'd probably just have a cry. England's response was a V shape. They received the hacker's invitation, the challenge, but that V, of course, encroached a couple of yards into the All Blacks half. Nigel Owens and his team had to usher a couple of them back into our half. That's against the rules. England have now been fined a suspected £2,000 for that perceived misdemeanour. £2,000, Martin. What do we make of that?
I think it's an absolute load of cobblers. I think this is absolutely ridiculous. Not in and of itself that they fined us, because there are rules around what you are and aren't allowed to do, and you probably do need to have them, otherwise teams would start going up and kicking them in the goalies or something while they're doing the hacker, which isn't on. But I don't think that you can do what World Rugby have done either. And what World Rugby have done is find us £2,000 and continue to promote this video on their YouTube channel, which currently has 4.5 million views. You know what that video is called? It's not Watch England's shameful response to the hacker, Watch England's illegal response to the hacker. No, Watch England's incredible response to the hacker before game against New Zealand. So they're happy to say how brilliant it is, but they're also fining us £2,000 for it. £2,000's not even a drop in the ocean, by the way.
It's a good point.
What's the point in it?
Well, I agree, and I think particularly given UEFA's fine for Bulgaria yesterday, there is a conversation to be had about the pitiful amounts we are seeing people get fined in sport. But with this specific fine for our response, we are not getting fined for the response. We are getting fined for going 2 yards over the halfway line, which is why it's a pittance, and it's why it's not a big deal to fine us.
So why bother fine us? Why just slap us on the wrist and say, look, it was great, and we are going to, as a result, sort of promote it and try and get ourselves publicity and probably income from it as well, by the way, which will probably, give them way more than £2,000. But, on this occasion, we won't fine you. We'll just give you a small slap on the wrist because it's such a minimal response.
They've got to fine them, though. They've got to fine them. If there's a rule, they have to follow the rules. It's like if a bloke catches the ball on the halfway line playing football and drops it at his feet in a context where it doesn't lead to a goal, doesn't affect the game. The ref can't just go, well, on this occasion, it looked good, so I'll let you off.
But at the same time, they wouldn't put a video up and say, watch footballer do incredible catch on the football pitch. And, rugby is a game where obviously there are real risks. You wouldn't put a high tackle up on YouTube and say, watch Courtney Law's incredible hit on Bowden Barrett if he then went and got a yellow card for it, even if a few years ago it would have been fine. I think it's really hypocritical.
It is hypocritical. They can't use it and promote it and enjoy it and then get happiness from it and then fine the country that's done it. How ridiculous. And on that point, I've got a good joke for you both. There's an Irishman, Scotsman and a Welshman in a pub. In a pub.
Right.
There's normally an Englishman with them. But he's still in Japan for the Rugby World Cup final. That's good, isn't it, Johnny? Do you get it?
I do get it. Because we're still in it and they've been knocked out.
Get it? Great.
It is great.
Get
There's
it great.
a bit
We're
of
in
a
the
change
final.
of tone from Warren Gatland earlier today as well, the Wales coach, which I was pleased to see because it gave us great amusement, didn't it, earlier on this week when he and Eddie Jones had a bit of a
little to-do.
Little tete-a-tete, didn't they? Warren Gatland said, oh, maybe they've played their final already. We've seen that before. Eddie Jones said, I'll just pass my best wishes on to Warren Gatland. Make sure he enjoys the third, fourth playoff. Well, today, Warren Gatland's come out and he says he wishes England all the best and that it would be great to see a Northern Hemisphere team win the World Cup, which, given he's a Kiwi himself, Warren Gatland, and is now out of the World Cup to all intents and purposes, he didn't have to say, but it would be true. To have a Northern Hemisphere team win the World Cup again would be great. Remember, 4 years ago, all 4 teams in the semi-finals were from the Southern Hemisphere, so to have 2 from the Northern Hemisphere in the semi-finals was a big improvement this year. To have 1 in the final, and let's be fair about it, the favourites to win, is a significant shift, and it's a good change. And I'm pleased to see Warren Gatland and Eddie Jones have mellowed towards each other a little bit, because they are old mates, really.
Yeah, I don't think it was that so bad, really.
It wasn't.
I think Eddie's comment, tongue-in-cheek, was, I wish Warren good luck for the 3rd and 4th place playoff.
Pass on my regards to Warren. I hope he enjoys the 3rd, 4th playoff. Yeah, it was. It was a bit of fun, really.
It's great he's English, isn't it?
Yeah, it is fantastic. I think
what
later
are you laughing
on,
at, Johnny?
Nothing.
Honorary Englishman. He's going to be Prime Minister. We were talking about that yesterday. We'll maybe get your thoughts on that later. We're going to be talking about Aussie influence on English sports teams as well later on, because you cannot deny that since we started appointing Aussies as coaches, we've improved a lot. We won the World Cup in cricket. We're maybe going to win the World Cup in rugby. We've just appointed an Aussie as the England women's cricket team coach, Lisa Kitely, a very, very successful Aussie cricketer in her time. Let's hope that brings similar results, although, of course, our women are already the world champions. Warren Gatland says that, of course, they've got a game against New Zealand themselves on Friday morning our time. That's the 3rd, 4th playoff that Eddie Jones was talking about. He says we might make a W shape for Wales at the Haka, which would be quite fun. Do you think, though, it's about time that all teams started making a bit of a concerted response to the Haka, one way or the other, whether it's to sort of make a statement or just to do something to distract themselves maybe as much as anything, distract the New Zealand team a little bit, or is it fine to just stand there linking arms as teams have traditionally done down the years?
Well, I'm not sure about it. I know we've got to talk about history and all that sort of stuff, but I've got a video that I've sent to you both just a few minutes ago of the Haka and what it was like 20 years ago.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen it.
I've seen one, yeah,
but
it's
perhaps
funny.
we could get it onto our Twitter account this afternoon on Love Sport, because it is really funny. All their players, Johnny, are about as big as you.
Enormous, then.
Built
tanks, huge units.
And when you see them, it is not the intimidating Haka of what it is now. But
it's awkward, isn't it?
It's awkward. I loved it, what he did the other day, and I loved it that they went into their half and broke the rules and challenged them.
And that is partly what made it so good, isn't it? World Rugby cannot pretend, I don't think, that it would have been just as effective if we'd stayed, as we were meant to legally, if you like, within their laws, in our own half. Part of what made it a statement was that we knew we weren't allowed in their half, and we said, you know what?
Yeah,
I don't care. Can I tell you a story?
Yeah.
Can I tell you a story? When Alan Pardew took me to Reading as first team coach, they were near the bottom of the league and it hadn't been going so well. And the first home game we won 1-0 to Colchester, and the second game we was away at a place called Preston. They were top of the league and cruising, and their manager was a nice guy. He wasn't a nice that day, called David Moyes.
Okay.
So anyway, we went up there and we took all the boys on the Friday night to a local pub, and we gave them fish and chips, and they all had a pint of Guinness, and we had a pool competition the night before we played Preston. They were top, we were near the bottom. Anyway, when we got to the stadium at what do they call Preston? Deepdale. The changing rooms are behind the goal. So I said to our players, we're going to go out 5 minutes early today for our warm-up, and we'll go out before the Preston team. And the guy had told us in security we warmed up at this end near our supporters at this end of the pitch. So, okay, I said, thank you very much, bye-bye. Took the bibs, took the balls, took the discs, got all the players right behind me, looked them all in the face in no uncertain terms, said, you follow me and stay next to me as much as you can. So we jogged to the far end, Johnny, over the halfway line in front of all the Preston fans. After a few minutes, the security guy who told me the warm-up was up here, he came down. And he said, Mr. Allen, your warm-up is at this end of the pitch. I said, thank you very much. We'll move in a minute.
Did you say that?
Yeah, thank you very much. We'll move in a minute. And we carried on our warm-up. All the players are now grinning a little bit, and I was stood there like shoulders back, head up, fierce eyes, horrible face on. 5 minutes later, he came back down. He said, Martin Allen, he said, if you don't get those players off that pitch now, and all the players could hear this, I'll call the police. I said, call them. No problem. No one said we can't come down here. There's no rules about where you can and can't warm up. It's just recommended. It's not like in stone. So anyway, we got warming up. And now all their supporters, the Preston players now came out onto the pitch. And the Preston players, instead of warming up at the other end, they came down to their home end. So we were warming up on the pitch in the same area as the Preston players. And I was not going to move. Then, right from the other end of the pitch, from behind the goal, I saw this bloke with a flat black cap on and a wooden stick in his police uniform marching through the middle of the pitch. And I looked across and thought, uh-oh, I'm in trouble. So as he came down towards the side of the pitch where we were marching, I got all our players to follow me in pairs across the other side of the pitch. So as he came down, we were jogging across the goal mouth of the Preston, where they were warming up their goalkeeper, into the other side of the pitch where their team were doing their team, and we just jogged right through the middle of them. You can imagine, they all had the massive ump, and then the policeman stopped me. He said, "Oi, stand there, don't you move." And he walked over to me. He said, "If you don't get your team back into that half in 30 seconds, I am going to have you arrested for a public order offence." So I said, absolutely fine. I had my watch on and I stood right in front of him and did not move 1 inch. And I started to count the 30 seconds. We got to 29 seconds and I said to everybody, "Right, boys, everybody over the halfway line. Everyone over there." And we got over the halfway line just before he was going to arrest me. The players all laughed. I was kind of laughing, but thinking, oh, my God, he's going to nick me in a minute.
Yeah.
The Preston players were not happy at all. But guess what the score was, Johnny?
2-0 to Reading.
2-1.
You are so significantly a braver man than I. It's not even funny.
And, Johnny, at the end of the game, we all celebrated like you've never known.
And are you welcome back in Preston, Martin?
Well, every time I see David Moyes, whenever I don't see him every day, of course, but when I do see David Moyes, he always mentioned it. He said, "I can't believe what you did that day, son. Can't believe it." I said, "Well, it's all part of the game, isn't it?" And he smiles about it now.
Yeah.
But at the time, oh my God, it was great fun.
Well, when Martin Allen went to war with David Moyes, that was, of course, before the social media age. If it had happened today, it would have been all over Instagram. Coming up, we're talking to a social media expert to find out how today's sporting stars really make their money.
This is Love Sport.
When your kids are ill, you just want to help them feel better. But you don't always need antibiotics. Get advice from your local pharmacy or search NHS Choices.
Think the energy price cap will save you money? Think again. You could be saving a lot more on cheaper energy tariffs. Price comparison site A Spokesman Said will show you just how much money you could be saving against your current tariff. Don't throw away your hard-earned money to the energy companies. Check out aspokesmansaid.com and you could switch to cheaper bills in minutes.
aspokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
If you're driving on a motorway and you see a red X sign overhead, you need to change lanes safely. Driving in a red X lane is an offence. Red X's are there for a reason, to protect you and others from danger. The lane may be blocked by a broken down vehicle or road workers, or the lane may be needed for the emergency services. So if you see a red X, change lanes safely. Highways England, connecting the country.
My mum and dad say that I don't need lots of sugar. I'm sweet enough already. So we used the Change for Life food scanner app to find out how much sugar is in our food and drink. It's surprising how much we found. So I put my detective hat on to find the healthier choices. Woohoo! Found one, Mum! You can be food smart too. Download the free Change for Life food scanner app today.
Brilliant, I've finally quit.
I can keep up with my kids now.
I feel like I've got my life back.
It's an amazing feeling when you stop smoking. Experience it for yourself with help from Smoke Free. Our range of free support can help you quit for good. From our app to emails, face-to-face and online communities. Search Smoke Free, because there's only one you.
Love sport.
England's rugby players have an opportunity now to win the biggest prize of all, the Rugby World Cup. And whilst Owen Farrell will be 99.9% focused on that accolade, we can reveal he's actually won another one. He is England Rugby's top social media earner, particularly on Instagram. Farrell gets £921 per sponsored post, but Cristiano Ronaldo, the Portuguese and Juventus footballer, gets £780,000 per sponsored post. It is absolutely incredible. The question now is, how are these guys making so much money on social media? We're joined on the line by Alan Stevens, who's a social media expert. Good afternoon, Alan. How does this work then? How does 780 grand get earned for a photo?
It sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? It sounds absolutely crazy. But the way that it works is they've got such a massive following. You know, Cristiano Ronaldo's got millions and millions of followers. And as a result, if somebody puts out a message, which is obviously declared as sponsored, then some people will end up buying whatever fashion item he's displaying or whatever product he's showing. And the profit far exceeds the amount they're paying him.
It is absolutely baffling. I mean, across a year, in context, Ronaldo makes £38.2 million off Instagram.
Yeah.
He is the highest rated person on the entire platform. He earns pretty much double Lionel Messi, who gets 18.7 million. It is absolutely staggering, but I'm similarly surprised, if I'm honest, that Owen Farrell earns comparatively so little. Why are the rugby players not in even the same league as the footballers?
Well, I think you've got to remember, obviously, rugby, although it's a global game, it's not like football. You know, so we don't have it played in every country. We have it played in about 16 or so countries at the moment. And the thing is, even the highest earning rugby player, who is Bowden Barrett, the New Zealand fullback, who earns about £1,500 per picture, is still not making anything like the amount of money that he could do. I think there will be more of that. I mean, the fact is, Owen has got sponsorships with Nike, with Investec, and with Land Rover. And I think if you know what happens on Saturday is what we expect happens, I think his earning potential will go up a lot.
And can you do more than one Instagram a day?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, of course you can. I mean, you can do you can do really as many as you want. And what he's doing, in fact, he's putting them out for those three different sponsors on a regular basis. He hasn't put that many out. He's only put out about 100 posts altogether. Whereas Ronaldo's doing quite a few each. Well, he's not doing that many each day for his sponsors, but he's doing quite a few each day altogether.
Alan, as I understand it, the regulations and laws around this have changed in the last year or so, where previously you didn't have to declare if it was a sponsored ad. Now, to anyone with half a brain, it was always pretty obvious that Cristiano Ronaldo didn't have a natural passion for Nike sunglasses. But there we go. That said, you have to do the same on Twitter, I believe.
You do.
But is that as profitable as Instagram? You don't hear about it in the same way.
No, it's not. No, Twitter is not as popular, and I think that's because of the demographic. I mean, Twitter used to be something that was fairly universal, and in fact, the age profile of Twitter has moved up quite a lot. Whereas Instagram is being, it's a 16 to 25 age range is all over Instagram, and those are the people who are actually buying fashion items in the majority. So, and that's why Instagram's where the big money is.
And we've seen a fascinating story in the last day or so where the Czech Republic international women's goalkeeper, who is in the country to represent her club side against Arsenal, in addition to being a top-level professional footballer, also has 450,000 subscribers on YouTube with total video views of 76 million. YouTube, I know, can be seriously profitable, but it isn't something that many sports stars capitalise on.
No, it isn't. You're quite right. And I think, there's a lot of untapped potential out there. And there are a lot of people sort of lurking around. We used to have these football agents with big cigars that were going around offering people wads of money. And now it's the social media influencers who have taken that role over. So I think what's happening is people are going to start tapping into that a lot more. I mean, you've got to feel for some of the rugby guys. They're really not earning very much at all. But then, they're playing some great rugby. I'm sure they will start to reap the benefits, but they're a long way behind the footballers right now.
So what does she do then? Put videos onto YouTube, and YouTube's a channel, is it?
Yeah,
well,
that's
you
right.
have a channel on YouTube.
Yeah,
Right.
you do have a channel on YouTube. Obviously, YouTube is owned by Google. YouTube's the second most used search engine in the world behind Google, so people are searching it for stuff all the time. And how can I put this without being politically incorrect? She's easy on the eye, I think, if that's the way I could put it. And a lot of people enjoy watching.
What does
her
that
videos,
mean? Easy on the eye?
You know what that means.
Bit tidy.
A little bit tidy, shall we say?
That's the technical term. Alan, you mentioned a moment ago that the rugby players will be
Does
hoping...
she advertise clothes?
Stop it.
Let's not go down that road. I've gone too far.
We're moving on. Alan, we heard...
I'm on Google now.
Stop it. We heard, Alan, that the rugby players will be hoping to catch up with the footballers. And you also mentioned that Owen Farrell might be rather closer to doing that if England do win the World Cup final.
What do you mean if?
When? I do apologise.
Of course, of course it's going to happen.
So when we win that trophy for the first time since 2003, how much is the potential Instagram earnings of these guys going to go up?
It's probably not that much. I would expect, he could probably get maybe 5,000 tops at the moment. If you think Bowden Barrett, New Zealand have been world champions a couple of times, and he's pocketing 1,500 per Instagram. I think Owen Farrell's got a lot more potential. He's got some really good sponsorships there with Nike and Land Rover and those sorts of guys. So he can capitalise on it, but he's never going to get anywhere near Ronaldo, in my view. Not a chance. So.
Well, it doesn't look like any sports person really can.
Nobody can touch him.
Alan, just finally, we've talked a lot about toxic atmospheres this week, both at the football with the Arsenal example, Granit Xhaka getting an absolute pasting. Also in politics, of course, with the news we're going to have a general election on the 12th of December. Various MPs citing toxicity, citing abuse as a decision not to stand. How much do you think social media plays a part in that unpleasantness?
Social media is a vehicle. It's people that are posting stuff that's doing it. But I think what can be done, Facebook announced an initiative only last week where they're actually starting to use artificial intelligence to trap things that are offensive and insulting, and particularly anything that incites some kind of hatred. So there are a lot of moves being taken by these social media channels. 260 million posts were taken down last year by Facebook alone because of offensive content, and lots of that's done automatically. So they're trying hard, but it's a constant battle, unfortunately.
Fascinating stuff, as always. Alan, a real pleasure to speak to you. Thank you for your time. Alan Stevens there, who is our resident social media expert, giving us the inside line as ever. And if that's piqued your interest, you can get Love Sport Radio on Twitter and Instagram at Love Sport Radio. We're on YouTube as well. Posh Boys on Drive is being streamed live to YouTube as we speak. It's on there every day, so you can see Martin Allen's smiling face as well as listening to his dulcet tones.
I've just pressed the button. You can literally see Martin as I speak. So if you want to hear my voice and look at Martin, that's what you do right now.
Synergy.
If you go on Love Sport Radio's YouTube channel. Just quickly, what Alan said there about YouTube and the way it monetizes things as well. Don't forget that with World Rugby plugging England's incredible response to intense New Zealand haka, which currently stands at 4.53 million views, they'll have earned a pretty penny on that. Rather more, I suspect, than England's $2 grand fine that they've whacked us with, of course.
Tasty earnings. When I was a teenage boy, I had a YouTube channel, and I was getting about 100 grand a video, and you earn a pittance from that. You earn like
100,000 views, Johnny.
Yeah.
You said 100 grand a video. I think our listeners were getting
So was I.
Slightly concerned. There's
Me and you
Boys
could do a video for 100 grand, Johnny.
And calling it a pittance.
No, 100,000 views and then earning about a £5 a month. So you need to get into those kind of stratospheric levels of viewership to make big money.
What sort of videos did you make?
I played video games online. I played FIFA.
What, people watched you playing a video game?
Yeah, well, so the thing about FIFA is it has a kind of market built into it where you can buy and sell players and make a profit with the in-game money. So all I was doing, because the average FIFA player, not that sharp, was doing very basic things like buy low, sell high, and translating it into a football context, and people seem to enjoy it. Anyway, we've seen that, unlike me, some people making big money on social media. One is Cristiano Ronaldo. He earns £38.2 million a year from his Instagram posts. Martin, his annual salary with Juventus is 26.7 million. He's earning more from Insta than he is playing football. Does that make you rethink your attitude to footballers messing about on Instagram? I know you're not keen on it, but at the point where they can double their earnings, do the clubs have a right to ask them to stop?
I think that all comes down to image rights, Johnny, doesn't it? You know, I'm not sure you can actually say to them you can't do it. I think it's going to be monitored to make sure they put out the right thing. And for most of these players, Johnny, I don't actually think that they sit there putting stuff on Twitter from themselves. It comes from companies that put it on for them and manage the accounts for them. And I would guess, I can only guess because I don't really know anything about Instagram, that the players have it all put on there for them. And if he's making 780,000, he's probably got more than a few people picking up. What would they be? Pictures of him walking down the street or eating his egg and bacon?
Yeah, but it'll be pictures of him doing that, or just sitting on his sofa. But he'll be sitting on his sofa in a very nice branded cardigan, which will then be linked to buy immediately. So then the company in question can sell however many cardigans through Cristiano Ronaldo looking absolutely gorgeous wearing one. It is a completely bizarre world out there, but it is working.
Are you on Instagram?
I am on Instagram. I don't use it very much. I basically have it for professional purposes so that if someone tries to find me, I do exist.
Do you know what I couldn't get my head around? Someone set me up once with, what's that stuff called, that one called Facebook.
Yeah.
They put me on Facebook. So all these things were coming through on my phone, and there was a picture of someone eating their cereal. And underneath it said, I'm eating my breakfast. And I thought, I don't need that.
But Martin, with respect, it's not Facebook's fault if you've got boring mates.
No, but people putting on stuff like in the car going to London. And I thought, what is all this about? I had it, I had 2 days I had it, and I thought, nah, deleted.
I think, and I don't mean this in a cruel way, I think your generation don't quite get social media right. In a lot of cases, I think the younger generation are more savvy. But I say that, and I'm not that young a person anymore.
Well, you are, Johnny.
No, because there are generations coming through below me. I talk to my little cousin, who's 13, and she's got a phone, and I sort of go, oh, are you waiting until you can get Facebook? Because you've got to be 13. Are you all really excited? And she went, no, only old people use Facebook. I was thinking, hang on a minute. Facebook was the height of cool when I was a lad. It is changing very quickly, and if it keeps changing positively for Owen Farrell, maybe he will be challenging Ronaldo's earnings after all. Coming up, now we're very lucky that all three of us here on Posh Boys on Drive are firm friends, but what happens when teammates don't get on? Don't go anywhere.
Friend.
All right.
I'm not your friend.
All right.
Giving your team a voice. Love Sport Radio.
Making small changes to your lifestyle could improve your chances of staying healthier longer. Start now by taking our free How Are You quiz. Just search 1U.
Have you had enough of extortionate energy bills? A spokesman said could help you find the cheapest energy deals on the market. Don't take our word for it. There's hundreds of spokesman said customers who've saved big. Brian from Derbyshire saved £400 on his energy bills, and Tony from Northampton saved a massive £2,800 on his gas and electric. A spokesmansaid.com, the leading price comparison site where you can switch to the cheapest energy tariffs on the market in just minutes.
The spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
How are you? How are you really? Modern life can be busy, and sometimes it's easier to look after others before looking after yourself. But there's only one you. And making small changes to your lifestyle now could improve your chances of staying healthier longer. So take the first step to a healthier you with our free How Are You quiz. See how you score and get personalised tips and support. From how to eat a little healthier to turning a 10-minute walk into exercise. Just search 1U.
Driving too close to the car in front gives you less time to react. You may not realise that you're tailgating. Leave a 2-second gap between you and the vehicle in front. When it's wet, leave a 4-second gap. By staying back, you give yourself time to react. Stay safe. Stay back. Highways England, connecting the country.
As a parent, you always want to protect your kids. So make sure their vaccinations are up to date. Measles and whooping cough are on the rise and can cause severe illness, but childhood vaccinations can help prevent them. Are your child's up to date? Find out more. Search online for NHS vaccinations.
This is Love Sport.
Martin Allen is my best mate. He texts me, we keep up. It's normally Lys Mousset scored a goal and he's going, have some of that. I told you, you don't know anything about football. But Guy Watts, Johnny Burrow and Martin Allen get on the pitch. We get on when you hear us on the radio. We get on off the pitch as well. That is part of the key to our success. Now, I'm sure that's the case for some football teams, but apparently not the Chile national team. Arturo Vidal has revealed today that he is not on speaking terms with Manchester City goalkeeper Claudio Bravo, and as with Vardy versus Rooney, it comes down to the involvement of the wives and girlfriends. Vidal alleges that Bravo's wife accused us of partying during qualification for the World Cup in Russia and not qualifying because we didn't train because of how drunk we were. He said that's not true. He won't apologise to Bravo for what he said after those accusations. Bravo won't apologise on behalf of his partner, so the two simply do not speak. And now they've been named in a Chile squad together for the first time in 2 years. Can two players still play well together if they hate each other's guts?
Well, I think the manager's got some work to do there, Johnny, hasn't he? I mean, he's going to have to get them together. The amount of time in a hotel, in a training camp, training centre, the travelling, it's going to be very, very difficult. And the manager's got some work to do. He's going to have to get them into a room and say, well, come on then, you've got your say, you've got your say. Let's have it out on the table and let's see if we can find some common ground, because that ain't going to be successful going forward, is it? Let's be honest.
It gets very complicated when there are partners involved, doesn't it? Because
what happened then?
Well, what happened is that Bravo's girlfriend did an Instagram post. We're back to the social media, where she posted a loved-up photo of her and Bravo, basically going, sorry, babe, that you didn't qualify for the World Cup. Commiserations. It wasn't your fault. It was those nasty boys in the team who went out drinking instead of training. You were working hard. Now, that may have been true, but when his teammates see that, they're not going to go, oh, Claudio Bravo's one of the boys, are they? So they've decided his girlfriend's bad news. They've fallen out with him over it. And there is no apparent reconcile to be had. It's not just these two making up. It's Vidal and the keeper's girlfriend, I suppose.
Well, he's got no one else to blame but himself. He shouldn't have gone out. Did you say they went out drinking?
Well, that's what she alleged.
Well, if that's absolutely true, then it doesn't matter who's grassed on them. It could have been his bird, or it could have been someone down the high street. If you're out drinking and out nightclubbing and playing around and messing about, it's just not acceptable. You cannot do that.
But within the confines of a team, what about snitching? And it's not a term I like to use. I don't think it's a helpful term. But
ain't snitching, just telling the truth.
Well, we've seen it used with reference to Rebecca Vardy, who, of course, denies leaking stories to The Sun from Colleen Rooney's Instagram. But we have now seen Burnley fans chanting, Jamie Vardy, your wife is a snitch, and so forth. People who are perceived as not being trustworthy aren't very popular, are they?
That's a very nice way to put it, Johnny. Well, this is a real dilemma, and I'll share it with you, but you've got to understand, I can't say people's names.
No, fair enough.
I took a team away to Le Touquet in France for a 5-6 day training camp, a training centre. So you've got a nice hotel, lovely training pitches. The French national team trained there before the World Cup, so it was a proper nice place. Swimming pool on site, nice pitches, nice place to go, nice climate, beautiful. So the players had to train at 7:30 in the morning along the beach, back for a 9 o'clock breakfast, back on the training pitches at 10:30, and then lunch, rest in the afternoons, back on the training pitches at 4:30, train until 6, dinner at 7, in your bedrooms at 9, no alcohol. if you complete all that work we put together, then on the Saturday night we said Saturday afternoon we'll go paintballing in out in the trees and all that sort of stuff, and then in the evening they can come back, get a shower, and everybody could go out as a group and have a bit of fun before coming home on a Sunday. Sounds great, Johnny, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it sounds fair as well.
Sounds fair and reasonable. So anyway, 10 o'clock, I'm in bed, Thursday night, tired. It's been long days, managing, all these people, keeping an eye on them and all that. Anyway, about 1 o'clock in the morning, there's a knock on my door, and I thought, what's going on here? Went out to the door. 2 of my members of staff, not naming names, said, got to tell you, Gaffer, we went out into town after you went to bed. This is 2 members of staff, Johnny. We went out and we had a couple of beers. And we looked across the bar and 2 of our players were stood across the bar. So they've seen us out and we've seen them out. So we thought we'd better tell you. So I said, oh, God. He said, well, both players are really worried you're going to be upset and they're going to get sent home. So I said, OK, come in. Right, you two, forget about you two being out because the rules weren't in place for you. What are we going to do about 2 senior, good players, captain-like men? Are we going to send them home and embarrass them, fine them 2 weeks' wages, transfer list them, or should we accept an apology?
You wouldn't transfer list them, would you?
Yeah, of course you can.
For that?
Oh, yeah, breaking curfews. You can't break curfews. So anyway, got them together, and I said, right, to the coaches, tell them to come to my bedroom in the morning, 8 a.m. Knock on the door, proper gingerly knock, you know what I mean? Not a full-on bang, bang. It was like tap, tap. Sat them down. I had my kit on and ready. Right, tell me all about it. And they said, well, look, we worked really hard. We just fancied a couple of beers. So we walked down into the town and a couple of beers. And then we had a couple more beers in this little bar and then we saw the other 2 members of staff. So I said, well, what do you reckon? And they just both looked at me with those sloppy, floppy eyes and said, we're really sorry. We feel as though we've let you down and you've been really good to us. And, we're looking forward to Saturday night. So he said, look, whatever you want us to do, we'll do. So I said, okay, fine. I had a choice, Johnny. I wanted those 2 players in my team and they were both good players, or send them home. I said, right, you two, you'll both pay for pizza for everyone in the 22-man party at lunchtime today, and you can foot the bill. Once that's done, it's a done deal. And
Quite like that.
Ever do that to me again. And they both shook my hand and I said, thank you very much. Thank you very much. And Johnny, the lesson to be learnt from it was 10 months later, we won the championship. And both those players played at least 35 games in that team.
Mm.
So instead of getting mad with them and getting even with them, helping them and looking after them, like the Granit Xhaka thing earlier, instead of hammering him and sending him off to Russia or something, look after him, make the best of it, see it from both sides, and move forward.
One final question, quick one. How was the pizza?
Beautiful.
And that is the secret, isn't it? Everything can be solved with a pizza.
This is Love Sport.
Brilliant. I've finally quit.
I can keep up with my kids now.
I feel like I've got my life back.
It's an amazing feeling when you stop smoking. Experience it for yourself with help from Smoke Free. Our range of free support can help you quit for good. From our app to emails, face-to-face and online communities. Search Smoke Free, because there's only one you.
Full of skill, full of flair, full of desire. Fulham FC is full of fire.
Oh, what a goal!
Be there at Craven Cottage as Fulham continue their surge towards the top of the Sky Bet Championship. Watch the unmissable action live in SW6, home of London's original football club.
Absolutely brilliant.
Grab your tickets now at fulhamfc.com.
You probably think you're pretty good at multitasking behind the wheel. I mean, you have to multitask to drive. So what's wrong with checking your phone? The thing is, your brain simply doesn't work. Even a quick look at a message, or firing off a quick reply, affects your concentration and makes you less able to react to hazards. If you use a mobile phone while driving, you're 4 times more likely to crash. Think. Put your phone away.
As a parent, you always want to protect your kids. so make sure their vaccinations are up to date. Measles and whooping cough are on the rise and can cause severe illness, but childhood vaccinations can help prevent them. Are your child's up to date? Find out more. Search online for NHS vaccinations.
As a busy mum, you're juggling loads of things. And when your kids are ill, you just want to help them feel better. But you don't always need antibiotics to help them get better. For things like sore throats, coughs and colds, you can get advice from your local pharmacy. And you don't need an appointment. To find your nearest pharmacy, search NHS Choices.
We got lots to come for you on Posh Boys on Drive. Going to be talking to Neil Collins, a South African-based sports journalist, to get the South African line on this Rugby World Cup final. How are Rassie Erasmus's men viewed back home, and how can England beat them? We're also discussing Dr. Richard Freeman, the former Team Sky and British cycling boss, is in a spot of bother. It's he said, she said, but who said what? First of all, I'm saying news.
On digital radio, online, mobile and smart speaker. This is Love Sport News.
From the Sky News Centre at 4, Boris Johnson says the survivors and families of the victims of Grenfell Tower were shamefully failed. The Prime Minister says a report into the disaster in 2017 shows people were overlooked and ignored before the blaze. The London Fire Brigade has been severely criticised for not telling residents to leave their flats sooner. Its boss, Commissioner Danny Cotton, insists she won't resign.
The important thing is recognising that I am here now. I'm committed to learning. I'm not running away from any of this. I'm standing here and I'm taking responsibility for London Fire Brigade.
Meanwhile, Boris Johnson's already setting out why voters should back the Conservative Party and not Labour in a pre-Christmas general election. He's been critical of what he thinks a government led by Jeremy Corbyn would bring.
Putting up taxes on corporations, on people, on pensions, on businesses, and at the highest level in the whole of Europe, Mr. Speaker. That is the catastrophe, the economic catastrophe that he offers. But it's worse than that, because he also offers a political disaster.
Mr Corbyn insists his party offers real change. Former Home Secretary Amber Rudd has announced she's not standing in the forthcoming poll. Theresa May's former effective deputy, Sir David Lidington, has confirmed he won't either. 12 migrants have been found alive in a refrigerated truck in northern Belgium. The men, who were originally from Syria and Sudan, were discovered in a motorway parking area outside Antwerp. The pilot of a helicopter that crashed into a pub in Glasgow consciously took a risk. An inquiry says the pilot ignored low fuel warnings. 10 people were killed when the Police Scotland aircraft came down in 2013. Sport, Celtic winger James Forrest has signed a new contract with the Scottish Premiership champions until 2023. The academy product has made 369 appearances for the club, scoring 81 goals. And the pre-flight scrum to get onto a plane could soon become a bit easier. Gatwick has been testing a system where window passengers get on first and people with aisle tickets board last. That's the latest. I'm Annie Green.
Love Sport Radio. On digital radio, online, mobile and smart speaker. This is the Posh Boys on Love Sport Drive.
Good afternoon. It is indeed the Posh Boys, Johnny Burrow, Guy Watts and Love Sport's very own Martin Allen with you until 7. And we've got lots to get our teeth into this afternoon. Your top stories, well, we're continuing our build-up to England's iconic Rugby World Cup final against South Africa. We're going to be getting the South African view on things in just a moment's time. But we're also talking Arsenal. The Granit Xhaka situation is very, very complicated. The club captain has been offered counselling after he was booed by his own fans against Crystal Palace, but he still hasn't apologised. What's going on there, and why are the Arsenal fans so toxic? I know it's not all of them, but believe me, I'm in the Emirates a lot. I hate it. I think some of them are really, really unpleasant. We had a call in from a chap listening in Croydon earlier. If you want to get involved, if I'm being unfair, give us a ring on 02 08 70 20 558. You can WhatsApp us in as well. And we are, of course, discussing Dr. Richard Freeman, the former British cycling boss and Team Sky boss, the boss doctor, that is, not head overall, in a spot of bother over illegal tester gel orders. But we got to talk England, we got to talk rugby, and we've got to talk South Africa, because we know Eddie Jones's boys are loved over here. But how are Rassie Erasmus's men viewed in South Africa? Neil Collins is a South African-based sports journalist, and he joins us on the line now. Good afternoon, Neil. 2 years ago, South African rugby was in crisis. How has Erasmus turned it around?
Rassie Erasmus has turned it around by being heavily involved in everything that the South African Rugby Union do. Long before he became a coach, he was a player, almost a representative for some of the players, and also involved in the kind of internet side of things as well. So there's a bit of controversy when he took over that it was kind of an inside job, because obviously in the modern South Africa, there's an eagerness to change our sports from the kind of the old-fashioned apartheid where white men ran the game to African men running the game. So there was a bit of a kind of a confloption. Rugby lags behind all the other sports. Football's always been very democratic. Cricket is kind of halfway in between. So there wasn't widespread celebration, just like there isn't widespread and unanimous celebration over how well the Springboks are doing. But there is a gradual understanding of the unifying aspect that we saw. If you look at the movie Invictus, Clint Eastwood's famous rugby movie with Matt Damon playing Francois Pienaar, you go back to those days, 95, when the Springboks winning the World Cup was a great unifier. We're trying to get back to that, I think, at the moment in South Africa, and I think it's working. I don't like the style that they've adopted. I don't in the latter stages, the quarterfinal and the semi. Probably, the Springboks aren't favourites this time. 2007, they were probably favourites. I watched that one with Ben Cohen in the Dome, 2007, and I felt that England were denied a try that they should have got. There's a lot going on, but now it's the brutal weight of the Springboks against the much what we perceive as being a much more running, talent-driven England rugby team, and it really comes down to the old, almost 1980s England playing passing small man rugby, and South Africa playing the heavy bash, kick rugby. But whether it will turn out like that, I'm not really sure.
And is Rassie Erasmus's decision, it's hard to say that, isn't it? Rassie Erasmus's decision to give the captaincy, Khaleesi, the armband to be the skipper. Is he the first black skipper of South African rugby?
Yes, so that's Mr. Allen, isn't it?
Yes, Martin.
Right, Mad Dog. So listen.
Love that. All the way in South Africa.
I've worked in South Africa quite a lot, Johnny boy. My words. What is it like then to have Khaleesi as the captain of your team?
Yeah, exactly. It's fantastic. It's changed the nature of the way that black South Africans see rugby, because it's never been a black man's sport, and now suddenly we've got a side that's nearly as transformed as the England side. I think we've got equal number of guys that you might consider black in the two teams. Same with the French. There's always a big debate here about transformation, about how many black guys are in the cricket and rugby teams and how many white guys in the football team. It's a terrible country for that. I hate it. And the talk about race all the time. Last night we had a big game of soccer here, and I raised a very dodgy offsides and a terrible foul, and then I was accused of being racist. So there's an awful thing in South Africa, in sport, in society generally. But Siya Kolisi, who's married to a white woman and went to a good school, like most of the rugby players that are in the Springbok side, they went to good schools, or they were picked up from township schools, as we call them, pushed into good schools where they took the necessary protein supplements to become Springboks. So Siya Kolisi has definitely changed the attitude of the average South African towards the Springboks. It's no longer perceived quite as the bastion of whiteness that it once was. And the Cyril Ramaphosa, the president, then sends Siya Kolisi WhatsApps that we get on Twitter and Facebook, where they're colluding and talking about how they're going to do for Boris Johnson, and it's going to be Boxit, not Brexit, and all that kind of stuff. So that's great. And I do sense a movement of general unanimous approval. There's still a large sector of South Africa that will say that the Springboks don't represent us. There's a tradition of a lot of the coloured folk in Cape Town. When the British Lions used to come over here, they would all support the Lions. And when England came over to play rugby, the All Blacks, they would support, the visiting side, because there was that level of alienation in South Africa under apartheid and just afterwards. Now we're looking at a situation where Siya Kolisi is now a superhero. I think there's still problems. We've got a great scrum half here called Herschel Jantjies, who's been nominated as the Breakthrough Player of the Year in the world. Great scrum half, but we're still using a long-haired lout called Faf de Klerk as our scrum half. He kicks and kicks and kicks, and he's not popular. So there's still debates and confusion sometimes about how South Africa stands on this, but generally the picture is England are the old enemy. We've had a Boer War, we've had Zulu wars, we've had Xhosa wars, and there's an awful lot of antipathy towards the British generally, and England in particular, over colonialism and over the way that South Africa grew up. England were very good at taking gold mines, and most South Africans don't really want to see England win. So I think that there's general, 93%, let's go South Africa, the president behind us, the captain is Siya Kolisi. And for the first time, we've got a side in the shopping centre over the weekend when they were beating Wales very narrowly, I would say. There was a general welcoming of this new transformed Springbok side with a black captain, a guy called Mpimpi on the wing, who I think is quite a good player. Cheslin Colby is fit again. He's kind of what you might call a black guy, here. And it's great. And I can sense the kind of nervous tension of should we all get behind these blocks? Are they going to do this final hurdle?
Well, that's the
England played
question,
so well in
isn't
that
it,
semi-final.
Neil? And you mentioned that the English certainly aren't that popular in South Africa, but you also mentioned that Faf de Klerk isn't particularly popular either, and you mentioned that excessive kicking. That's something that gets talked about a lot with this team. They don't have the most beautiful style of play. Are people in South Africa bothered by that?
Yes, they definitely are. So at the start of this tournament, we had a lad called Cheslin Colby, who is a magnificent skills rugby player, and he's a back, and he can run, and he can jink, and he can sidestep. We also had Mpimpi, like I say, and we had a couple of the forwards that were willing to run with the ball in the kind of new rugby fashion. But the Springboks have always built themselves around a kicking game, right back to the guy Nas Botha in the 70s, 80s. They used to kick the hell out of the ball, 60-yard kicks and penalties from everywhere. And unfortunately, again, I would say that South Africa have gone with the old-fashioned style. They've gone with the white fly half Pollard instead of the black fly half Elton Jantjies. So there's a perception that we're playing the old-fashioned Springbok rugby. And there have been times when we've tried to move to something more modern, but it works for South Africa. In South African high schools, particularly the posh ones and the white ones, guys from the age of 12, 13, whether they're black or white, they get infused with an awful lot of maxi muscle and slightly dodgy things, a lot of failed drugs tests amongst high school rugby players. So we have a very big, massive Afrikaans and now, for the first time, African rugby coming through that can, against Japan and Wales, we saw it, they just knock people over again and again and again. They hit, we kick, and eventually they submit, as Japan did for 5-3 down at half-time, as Wales did at one time, looking like they might win that semi-final. The South Africans are playing to their strength, which is very big men making very big dents in the opposition. Ibn Etzebeth, for instance, he's been accused of racial assault just before they left for the World Cup. He must be about 6'7", 6'8", and he doesn't seem to feel pain. And those are the kind of things that South African rugby is built around.
He'll feel pain Saturday morning.
Neil, it all sounds very, very punchy. Great to talk to you. Neil Collins there, South African-based sports journalist, giving us the Springbok view of things. All sounds a bit complicated.
No, it don't. Wait till Vinny Billy Polar goes right up against them, mate. Way! What? I can't wait for that, can you? What's that guy, 6'7"?
He's a big boy.
Vinipola will go into him, guy, crash him to the ground. First tackle, bang.
Yeah, fantastic. And we can hear from Matt Proudfoot as well, who's the Springboks forwards coach, and he says that the team were almost in awe of England's performance against New Zealand. I think it's fair to say that laid down a bit of a marker. Let's have a listen.
I think it's going to be very tight between the two sides. They were very efficient and very powerful against New Zealand, and I don't just think it was just brute force. There was a lot of intelligent play, very effective play from their pack. I was very impressed with what I saw. So I think it's going to be a great challenge for us to meet that.
As Neil was saying, there is more to this England team than sheer brute force. It's yet to be shown that there is a lot more to South Africa than sheer brute force. And remember, before the quarter-final, there was a big narrative about Eddie Jones coming up against the country of his birth, in Australia, the country that he coached, of course, in Australia, and then in New Zealand, a country he'd beaten before in a World Cup semi-final back in 2003 with Australia. But he's got history with South Africa as well, of course, because he was a consultant back in 2007. So I think it's easy to forget with Eddie Jones that this is a guy that not only has been there and done it with Australia in 2003, but Japan in 2015 as well, causing that incredible upset against South Africa, and also as a consultant when South Africa won the thing in 2007. I think he's someone who's got a great deal of respect in South Africa as well, and it would make it all the sweeter if we could go out and get some revenge on that 2007 game too. Been reading a lot about that in the papers the last couple of days. Of course, we had Mark Cueto on talking about that try that never was, that should have been. And yeah, I think it's enough to get all of us extremely excited for Saturday, isn't it?
It is indeed. We'll be continuing our build-up to that game throughout the show, throughout the week as well. Coming up, we're talking Derby County. You will all remember that terrible incident involving drink driving and injuries. The man who got hurt was, of course, club captain Richard Keogh, and the club have finally made a judgment. Don't go anywhere.
Love sport.
Brilliant. I've finally quit.
I can keep up with my kids now.
I feel like I've got my life back.
It's an amazing feeling when you stop smoking. Experience it for yourself with help from Smoke Free. Our range of free support can help you quit for good. From our app to emails, face-to-face and online communities. Search Smoke Free, because there's only one you.
Hi, my name's Kurt Edwards. I work in advertising and live in Surrey. Last year, the family content insurance was £745. A friend of mine had recommended a spokesmansaid.com. When it came for this year's renewal, I managed to get it for £403. So for those 10 minutes on that website, I saved over £340. Told my family, my friends, you'd be absolutely mad not to give it a go.
Thespokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
Before you set off on a long journey, remember to check your vehicle. Are your tyres correctly inflated? And are the treads deep enough? Have you got enough fuel? Is your oil level right? Checking your vehicle doesn't take long, but can prevent a breakdown or accident, and save you money. So, before you set off on a long journey, check your tyres, fuel, and oil. Highways England, connecting the country.
If you see somebody showing any of the signs of a stroke, you don't have to think about it, you just dial 999. Use the FAST test. F, face. Has their face fallen on one side? Can they smile? A, arms. Can they raise both arms and keep them there? S, speech. Is their speech slurred? T, time. Time to call 999 if you see any one of these signs. Act fast, make the call, dial 999.
When your kids are ill, you just want to help them feel better. But you don't always need antibiotics. Get advice from your local pharmacy or search NHS Choices.
This is Love Sport.
It's pretty rare you see a football story that is genuinely shocking, but we had one earlier this season coming out of the Championship, coming out of Derby County as well, with new big-name manager Philip Cocu not getting off to the perfect start, so he thinks, right, I'll energise the team, I'll energise that team spirit, we'll have a nice, quiet, club-sanctioned team night out, we'll go to the pub, have a meal, have a couple of pints, then we'll lay on the taxis to get the players safely home, and we'll have improved morale without doing anything silly. Of course, the vast majority of those Derby County players did just that. They got in the cars when they arrived and they went home. 3 players didn't. Tom Lawrence, Mason Bennett and club captain Richard Keogh stayed out drinking. And it ended in tragedy, with them driving home drunk after the night out and crashing into each other's vehicles after one of them struck a lamppost. Richard Keogh was in the back of his teammate Tom Lawrence's Land Rover. He suffered a serious knee injury. He's broken his leg in a couple of places. He's out beyond the end of the season, with his contract expiring at the end of this year. Now, the club have kept him on. His 2 teammates, by the way, Lawrence and Bennett, already back in the side. But we're now hearing that Derby will be asking Keogh to take a significant pay cut on his wages, which are currently £1.3 million a year. Martin, can they do that?
Yeah, I think so, Johnny. I think so. His contract to be up at the end of June. And my guess, I thought it was his knee that was...
It was his knee, but he's done all kinds of things in all kinds of places, I think.
So the leg break is pretty straightforward, but the knee injury with the anterior cruciate, I believe he's done. Then those...
I think he did both. I think he did
both.
ACL and what's
Ruptured
the
both.
other CL? MCL he did as well.
Yeah, so he's done both, done the lot. So you got to say his career is in the balance, but what he would want is a full rehab. So from June onwards, June, July, August, all the way through, Derby then suggesting that for that, instead of being at 1.3, you maybe be on 700,000 a year, and they'll pay him all the way through his rehab. And on Derby's part, they may not at the end of that even have a player.
No,
because he
they
might
won't.
not. So you can see both parties. He could say that he'll stick there and say, "Well, I'll get paid 1.3 million through to the end of June, and then I'll go to St George's Park to get myself fit using the physios that are absolutely superb at St George's Park, and forget you, Derby County." So that could go either way.
You've got to take into account as well that Richard Keogh is 33. He's not a young man in footballing terms. So even if the rehab goes perfectly, even if it's on schedule, let's be honest, Derby County will not be wanting to offer him a new contract in the summer because he's very unlikely to be at championship standard.
Not 100% he's going to be at any standard, is he? God bless.
It was at 15 months, didn't they? I mean, 15 months is
for
like...
For a 33-year-old, is that's a tough one. That is a tough one. So you've got to question, Johnny, whether he's actually going to play again.
He's been there 7 years, right? He's made well over 300 appearances for the club. He's probably, in modern terms, a club legend, a stalwart, certainly.
Yeah.
And this is a pretty severe sort of, if you like, choice that he's being offered. Either take a massive pay cut or get the sack. And he might say that as a little bit unfair, disproportionate, especially when you consider the lack of punishment that was handed out in footballing terms, really, to the two players who actually got behind the wheels of cars when clearly way over the limit, so over the limit that they were sentenced to 180 hours of unpaid community service, banned from driving for 2 years for their parts in the crash, Mason Bennett and Tom Lawrence.
Yeah, but Richard could just stay till the end of his contract in June and get paid
a reduced amount.
No, what he's on now. They can't change that. Derby County can't change what he's earning through to the end of his contract. That's fixed.
They could sack him, though.
But they haven't sacked the other two. So how can they sack him?
Is it a bit of age discrimination?
Well, they can't sack him, number one, because he's got a footballer's contract. If it was deemed gross misconduct...
That's what the Telegraph reporting, that it would be sacking for gross misconduct.
But that would not stand up because the two players that were driving the cars, and he wasn't driving his car, two players that were driving their cars had a collision that have made this horrendous error. Well, I wouldn't call it an error, a mistake. Those two players are still with Derby County, so the precedent has been set from this incident. So there's no way that they could then turn around and say, well, we'll sack you because you're 33. That ain't going to happen.
So with Derby getting this horribly wrong, if this is what they're doing, if the Telegraph's reporting is right, remember it was a Telegraph journalist who originally broke the story about Wayne Rooney, which we'll come on to in a moment, coming to Derby in the first place. If this is right, and Richard Keogh, who's been there 7 years, been club captain, okay, made a mistake, yes, but is being threatened with the sack if he doesn't get a reduction in his wages.
He can't get the sack.
All right, but if they are trying to use that as leverage in some way, threatening him with it, because that's what the story is saying, then are they getting this really wrong if they're letting Tom Lawrence and Mason Bennett, who were restored to the first team squad soon afterwards, missed, I think, if my memory serves me right, one game out of the squad, and then Tom Lawrence called into the Wales squad straight away afterwards as well.
Yeah. But what this is probably about, Guy, if we did get more information on this, is rehab is going to go into next year as well.
Yeah.
So he will get paid up until June.
Yeah.
Derby County will say, we will offer you full rehab with us every day with our physios, morning, afternoon, all the way through to when you're fit. But if you're going to do that, and we're going to pay you, we'll reduce your wages now and we'll continue to pay you through, say, what is going to be another 10 months.
Yeah.
Or till, say, for argument's sake, Christmas, from June through till Christmas, and then we'll review your situation then. So take a wage cut now and we'll add 6 months extra money onto your salary. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I see that.
So if we take the 1.3 million, if that now drops to 1.7 million, We'll take
Not
off the
a big
deal.
That comes down to $1 million,
Yeah.
and then that 300,000 goes between June through till Christmas, and that's how they might want to do it.
So if that's what's happening, then that's not really a pay cut. They're giving him the same money, but over a longer period.
Yes.
You say it would be nearly impossible for them to change the conditions of his contract without him
They can't,
signing
you're
the
not allowed
dotted
to.
line.
They'd have to take him to court unless they would
You're not allowed to
literally.
change contracts, Guy.
Not without the person signing a new one, essentially. And he could do that if he thinks the threat is to be sacked for gross misconduct otherwise. But as you say, that becomes extremely difficult
Impossible.
if the other two aren't being sacked for it, given that their part in the whole thing was
Is there a
worse.
possibility, Martin, that they could go to him and say, Richard, we've been pretty nice here. We haven't sacked you for gross misconduct. Let's be fair. You are obviously a person. You are also an asset to our football club. We have lost that asset. We are still going to pay you. We're not going to sack you. We're not going to put you through the ringer of a court case. But do the right thing. Take a pay cut. Is there any prospect of them doing that?
Well, there's another way to look at it, Guy. If it have got that injury in training or in a first team game, they would have been kind of you pay your player through till the end of his contract, which is the end of June. You would normally continue his rehab, but some clubs would pay you for your rehab, especially if you're a young player with a future, and others would say 33, end of June, you can come in here,
There's no
but we ain't
obligation,
paying
is
you.
there?
No, there's no
on the club's
obligation.
behalf.
No.
Because they've already paid you to
it's
essentially go to the gym
It's
for
a
9
goodwill
months.
gesture. There's nothing in their contracts that state if you're injured past the end of your contract, unable to play, we are not going to continue to pay you until you're fit. So there's nothing in their contracts that state that.
My instinct is that Derby are making a real hash of this, maybe more so than they had already with the way that they'd sort of dealt with reinstating the players into the team. We don't know, of course, whether that came from, say, Mel Morris, the chairman and owner at the top, whether it came from Philip Cocu, the manager, reintegrating them so quickly. I've no idea. Obviously, the fact the team was struggling a little bit around the time, still is really now, that would have played a role, you think. But the fact that Richard Keogh, the man who's been there 7 years, the man who's been club captain, was ultimately sitting in the back of this car, one of the cars, Tom Lawrence's car, is being threatened in some way with being sacked or having his salary reduced, and not the other two. Had they done it to all three, I'd say I'm pleased to see that, because I think that if you're a youngster growing up and you think, I want to be a footballer and I want to earn loads of money and I want to be privileged and be held in a sort of different regard to other people, then that's fine. That's something you're entitled to want to be, but you shouldn't think that that comes with an untouchability or different standards when it comes to the law. And I think if you don't get punished in some way by your employers as well as by the legal system for doing something as bad as this, I think that's a really bad precedent. I think Derby would be doing better to be saying this to all three of them.
Yeah, but if you was the owner of Derby County, Tom Lawrence is a good player.
Mm-hmm.
He's worth a lot of money. So you're basically writing off, what would he be worth, $2.5 million on a sale?
Yeah, probably more than that.
They're not gonna write that off. There ain't no way.
No, it's a very good point.
But there's one more other way of looking at this situation. With Richard Keogh, he wasn't driving the cars that crashed. However, as club stroke team captain, and cars were laid on, as mentioned a minute ago, everybody else, it seems, went home in the cars. And as club stroke team captain, his responsibility would to make sure that everybody gets either in a taxi or a club car and gets home without drink driving. That's not in his contract, but it's his kind of responsibility as a 33-year-old. And the owner, not so much the manager, the owner will be looking down and thinking, why didn't you do that? Why did you stay behind and carry on drinking when you should have made sure every player in our squad was in that car going home, and you're joining those players to do that? You are out of order. And I'd imagine Mel Morris underneath is absolutely fuming with his captain.
And it won't just be Mel Morris, the owner, who'll be fuming. It'll be Philip Cocu, the manager, who came in with this great big media circus. Oh, former Barcelona and Holland midfielder. It's really clear why they brought him in. Mel Morris loved Derby County being Frank Lampard's Derby County. He loved all of the media circus, all of the attention that came with that. He wanted it again. But it's not been helpful for Philip Cocu. We find Derby 16th in the Premier League. That said, only 9 points off the tops in Championship. Such is the madness of that division. But the difficulty is he's had to deal with all that media circus of the car crash. It's just going to start to quiet down. We'll have the Christmas period. Bang, 1st of January, enter stage right, Mr. Wayne Rooney wearing the number 32. It's not going to help.
Johnny, it don't matter who your manager is, whether he's been manager of Holland or Barcelona. When you lose Harry Wilson,
Mason Mount for
Mason
Tamori.
Mount and Tamori, who was their player of the year. Mason Mount, who's been outstanding so far for England, not for England, but outstanding for Chelsea, and also made his debut for England.
Tamori in a first
and
England
Tamori, who I saw play the other week, is oh my God, what a player! And Harry Wilson wins games. You take those three players out. Who on earth would have given Derby any chance of getting into the playoffs this year? You must be mad. They've got to hope that Wayne Rooney has still got some magic in those boots, and we see some clips from his time in Washington. He can still do it, but I can't imagine Wayne is that mobile now that he's going to help.
It's going to need to be a lot of magic, and let's not forget, he's coming in as a player coach, so he's coming into a squad where clearly, let's be honest, the discipline within the squad. Martin, you've obviously been in charge of squads. You obviously have the ability to discipline, to set the tone, lay down the laws, all that kind of thing. But it is about the squad doing it for themselves as well, right? It's about adults actually making decisions and what's the culture and all the rest of it. It's fair to say, from what we've seen, that when the club captain and two players as senior as Mason Bennett and Tom Lawrence are involved in that incident, it's not right, is it? And Wayne Rooney is coming in a position not just of experience, but authority as well. He's going to be a coach. He's going to be tasked with telling these players, youngsters as well, how to go about becoming top players. And he's coming in off the back, of course, of a glittering career, but a career that has been littered with off-field incidents. Let's not make any bones about it. And they've gone on till quite recently reports of him turning up worse for wear at Washington Airport.
In the last year, by the way.
In the last few months,
speaking broken English. That is a quote from the reporting police officer.
Yeah, exactly. And other things where, he's been driving and he's been out at times where he shouldn't have been driving, all that kind of thing. At a time where, whether he's been in the prime of his career at Man United in England or out in Washington, he's a guy with a strong track record of it. And I wonder if Mel Morris, who obviously was attracted by the allure, Derby going to be on TV, we hear, on the 2nd of January, just because Wayne Rooney's going to be making his first appearance back in England. It is going to be a circus. And I wonder if everything from Frank Lampard, that went quite well in fairness, but to Philip Cocu, to Wayne Rooney, and I'm not saying that's got anything to do with that car incident, but it all contributes to a sense that the club is a little bit out of control and it's got its priorities wrong.
I think you're spot on. And Frank Lampard, by the way, is a massive reason why Wayne Rooney coming to Derby County will be really, really unhelpful. Regardless of whether you think he's going to be good enough on the pitch, Wayne Rooney is coming in as a player coach because he's doing his coaching badges alongside. He has openly said this is the first step for him in a managerial career. What we're going to have is 1st of January, under pressure manager Philip Cocu, team down in the table, him questions asked about his future. You get a huge name, former England international, England all-time record scorer, walks in going, all right, lads, I really want to be a manager. If I'm the manager, I'm thinking, go away. I'm trying to sort this out. You are not having my job, because Wayne Rooney will have seen Lampard. He'll have seen Gerrard. He'll be looking at Philip Cocu and going, I quite fancy being Derby manager.
Love sport.
It's cancer, they said. My first thought, let's just say it wasn't money, but time off work for treatment and trips to hospital, paying the rent, and. The cost of living doesn't go away just because you're living with cancer, and Macmillan can help with that too. My advice? Take their advice, soon as. I did.
Macmillan, right there with you. Search Macmillan Money Worries.
Making small changes to your lifestyle could improve your chances of staying healthier longer. Start now by taking our free How Are You quiz. Just search 1U.
As a busy mum, you're juggling loads of things. And when your kids are ill, you just want to help them feel better. But you don't always need antibiotics to help them get better. For things like sore throats, coughs and colds, you can get advice from your local pharmacy. And you don't need an appointment. To find your nearest pharmacy, search NHS Choices.
Whoa! Look how much saturated fat is in these chocolate biscuits. It's surprising how much is in our food and drinks. For us kids, eating too much saturated fat can lead to harmful fat building up inside, which we can't see, increasing the risk of heart disease or stroke when we get older. So be food smart. Download the free Change for Life food scanner app and start making healthier choices today.
There are many things a mother can pass on to her baby. Her smile, her eye colour, and her immunity to whooping cough. Whooping cough is a very dangerous illness for young babies, and at the moment it's spreading fast. A simple vaccination during your pregnancy can help to protect your baby in their first weeks. Please speak to your GP, nurse, or healthcare professional and pass on your immunity.
This is Love Sport.
You're listening to the Posh Boys on Love Sport Drive. You're with me, Johnny Burrow, Guy Watts, and of course Love Sport's very own Martin Allen. We're talking Arsenal. Granit Xhaka still hasn't apologised, but we're hearing he's getting a spot of counselling from the club to help him get through what he had to deal with on Sunday. Fair enough, it looked tough, but there are some fans now saying the manager's getting this wrong. The problem comes from the manager allowing the players to pick their captain in the first place. It leads to a lack of authority. It leads to a spineless character wearing that armband. We blame Unai Emery and we want him out of our club.
Well, Johnny, I very rarely, if ever, would ever go against the manager. I'd always try and give him as best backing as I can, but there's a couple of things that I've been thinking about the last few days. Because you're an Arsenal fan, even though you do like Tottenham, you tell me you're an Arsenal fan, which I can't get my head round. But there's a few things, Johnny, that spring to mind. Number one, in the summer, they had a problem with a player refusing to go on their pre-season training camp. I think his name was Koscielny.
Correct.
He'd been a good servant to the club, and he seemed like what we would call a proper leader of people. A proper man's man, and it seemed, and I reckon there's more to this than meets the eye, that he was probably told that he could leave Arsenal, and then he was told there was a fee for him to leave Arsenal. That was the first problem. And then the second one, which has been an ongoing issue behind the scenes, was Mesut Ozil. Now, whether he's going to play or not play, he seems to be a popular player. And with the left back jumping out the car to protect him, Kolasinac, with that assault in North London, he seems like he's okay with the rest of the players, but he's clearly not happy player. Another senior player that's been successful, and you've got to, understand that the manager has got that right to say, I don't fancy you, I don't want you to be playing, you don't defend enough without the ball, you're a liability. Which we've seen on TV for months and months and plenty last season. When you play against the big clubs and you haven't got the ball, he is poor, because he doesn't track back, he doesn't tackle, he doesn't get himself in there. But he still is a good player, and so that's the second player. And now the third one of this coming to light with Granit Xhaka, who again is his captain. Koscielny was the captain, and I saw Arsenal a few weeks ago, and Ozil was the captain. So now it's the third player within the ranks that he's had a row with. That is not good news.
Seriously worrying for Arsenal fans. And former Arsenal goalkeeper Lee Harper joined Love Sport Breakfast this morning. He gave Richard Lee and Patrick Christie's his take on the whole Xhaka situation and his reaction to being substituted on Sunday.
When you look at captains, especially former captains at Arsenal Football Club, the likes of the Vieiras, the Tony Adams, people that are inspirational leaders. I don't think Granit Xhaka, when he was named captain, I was surprised. But to be fair to him, he does seem to be liked by managers. He was liked by Arsene Wenger. He played him. He's liked by Unai Emery, and he plays him week in, week out. I don't see what his complaints are, really. I mean, he was substituted for the best needs of the team.
Rich then put it to him that fans' favourite Hector Bellerin would be a better choice as captain.
I'm not sure on that one either, to be fair, Rich. I just think it's one big issue with us at the moment. I feel we've got talented players. I don't feel there's any real leaders in the club at the moment that are capable of doing that type of job. I'm not sure it's right for Hector Bellerin. I just don't know who else you give it to be honest.
You can listen to Richard Lee and Patrick Christie's every morning from 6:30. It's a cracker of a show. But are Arsenal a cracker of a team, Martin? Is there just a total lack of leadership in that squad?
Well, Johnny, I think we were chatting earlier, and the type of characters that Lee mentioned there in his interview, you know, with Vieira and Adams and Keown and the bold types player, John Terry type captains. Unfortunately, those players are not in there anymore. Those players, that's not in their DNA. You know, we spoke earlier about coaches and managers and discipline and bullying and intimidating training. You know, those days, I think, of that type of player. You've got probably one in Van Dijk at Liverpool, but no, the rest of them, it's not really in their DNA to be like that. If you're searching for one of those, you could be looking for a long time. I think it's just plainly obvious who the captain of Arsenal should be. It should be that David Luiz guy. I think they should just give it to him, get on with it, and steamroller through. I can't see where the issues are.
There are going to be Arsenal fans listening to you say that, Martin, feeling very, very sceptical. David Luiz, senior pro...
they're always sceptical, Johnny. You're an Arsenal fan, and all you do is see the negative on everything. Oh, my God, everyone's so negative. But, Johnny, it's not just Arsenal. It's most football fans are similar.
It is indeed. On the David Luiz front, won the Premier League, won the Champions League, experienced pro, but only been at the club a couple of months, come from Chelsea, possibly a problem there. Arsenal fans, what do you think? Martin is saying David Luiz should be given the armband. Do you agree? Michael from Croydon gave us a ring earlier to have his say. You can do the same. Call or WhatsApp us on 0208 70 20 558. Just remember to leave your name and where you're getting in touch from. I like the Hector Bellerin suggestion. And the reason why I like it is not just because he's been at the club for a while, not just because he clearly cares about the club. It's because, like it or not, we have had a cultural shift in football over the last 15 years. The Roy Keanes, the John Terrys, the Steven Gerrards, I miss them, but they are out of fashion, particularly at a club like Arsenal. Now, the long-haired, quite manicured Hector Bellerin, who's a vegan and cares about the planet and uses his platform to talk about
Johnny,
the importance
Johnny,
of
you are
global
the mad
health.
one. What are you talking about? Because he's got long hair and he wears... when he wears clothes
a vegan
from
Hector
Petticoat
Bellerin,
Lane, that don't mean he's going to be a captain.
You,
is
you
what
had a good
modern
point.
leader looks like.
When you were talking about the leaders of yesteryear, and Lee, I thought, made a couple of interesting points, but when he quoted Tony Adams and when he quoted Patrick Vieira, he is talking about two of the great captains we've ever seen in English football. It's not fair to always say, and I've done this with Man United as well, and said X or Y is not Roy Keane, Ashley Young's not Roy Keane. But the point is, yeah, it's not that long ago since you didn't have just Roy Keane. You had Nemanja Vidic, you had Rio Ferdinand, Gary Neville, Ryan Giggs, and all these sort of players as well.
You had 2 or 3 per
Even
team.
Wayne Rooney and Robin van Persie, I think we're better leaders than Ashley Young is at the moment, for example. But that's kind of getting off topic a little bit. I think that the Arsenal fans thinking that Hector Bellerin's the answer, quite frankly, what's the question? This is a guy who's still just 24 years old. He's missed the last year. Yeah, he's good on social media. He doesn't like Donald Trump and he's a vegan. That's brilliant. But I want someone to go out and be a leader in a football match. He's a right wing back. His best contribution might be bombing up, getting an assist. And don't pretend that he's got Arsenal running through his veins. He doesn't. He came from Barcelona and he will go back to Barcelona if they come calling for him.
It's true.
Just like Cesc Fabregas did all those years ago.
Yeah, just like Patrick Vieira did.
There's nothing wrong with that. But don't pretend that this guy is suddenly Tony Adams with a fancy beard. He's not.
I think that's true. But with Arsenal, we have to be pragmatic and we have to realise it is a case of what is available within that squad. The question isn't, is Hector Bellerin the perfect Premier League captain? The question is there anyone in that Arsenal team who would be a better Premier League captain?
I think I personally...
It's obvious, isn't it?
I think you're wrong with David Luiz, but I think you're closer to... That's just my opinion, but I think
Who
that
else can do it?
Rob Holding would be
Rob
a better...
Holding's not even in the team. How can you have
He
a
should
captain
be.
who don't play?
He should be. And he will play when he's back to full fitness. But the point with Rob Holding...
He was given the armband before, by the way, this whole nonsense with the vote with 16 captains named or whatever it was. He was given the armband. I can't remember who was captain on the night. I think possibly Xhaka, surprise, surprise. He went off, and Rob Holding had just come back. It was literally his first appearance. He'd come, or he'd started the game. I think he scored as well. Was it the Forest game?
Yeah.
And he was handed the armband. It was a bit like at Aston Villa last season, right? This doesn't get talked about that much, but Jack Grealish went off. He'd been made captain relatively recently. He gave the armband to on loan Tyrone Mings. Hadn't been discussed, hadn't been talked about. He didn't get in trouble for it, but he gave it to him because it seemed right. It seemed natural. Sometimes I think that footballers, everyone in life, has an instinct for who a leader is. And I'm not saying that Rob Holding is the modern day Tony Adams either, but I would look at him and say that he looks to me someone who's got the respect of the players. He plays in the right position. Typically, if anywhere, you're a centre-back as captain. I think that Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang would be a better bet of players who start week in, week out. He's at least a player who everyone respects because he's so good. And by the way, the Arsenal fans who are getting up to his car and abusing him for his performance in the Crystal Palace draw, they should hang their heads as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely agree. I'm kind of with you on Rob Holding in that I like him as a bloke, and at the moment, he is in Arsenal's best 11. The important part of that phrase is...
He's not playing, Johnny.
At the moment, he will be when he's back to full fitness. I absolutely promise you, he is the first choice centre-half in that team.
Okay.
The question is whether he will be next year. Arsenal have signed William Saliba. That deal is done. He will come in from Saint-Etienne and he will start. They are linked with a £75 million move for Dio Upamecano at Red Bull Leipzig.
Easy views, sir.
If they sign a major big money centre-half, he will come in and start. There is no point in naming a new captain who will not be in the team in 18 months.
That's what he did with Granit Xhaka.
But he thought Xhaka would be starting.
Johnny, on a serious note,
he's not a long-term solution.
He named 5 captains, right? One of them Xhaka, who was never really convincing to anyone and will now probably be off in the next few months, if not 18. Mesut Ozil, God knows why he allowed that to happen because he clearly didn't have any intention to ever pick him again. Then you've got Hector Bellerin as one of the 5, and I seriously believe that if Barcelona wanted him next summer, he'd be off like a shot as well.
So would almost every player in the world.
And
by
that
the way.
leaves, well, yeah, probably, but most fan bases don't claim that player is the messiah and that he's what everyone else should be aspiring to be like. Who are the other two? Aubameyang and Lacazette. I mean, yeah, they'd be better shouts. I agree. They would be better shouts, but they're still not exactly going to fix the leadership problem at the club.
And
they're on
hearing,
the pitch and
hearing in the last
difference.
24 hours that Aubameyang will leave the club in the summer if they don't get top 4. So
would you blame him? He should
no,
be playing the Champions League, shouldn't
well, I mean, if I'm Aubameyang, right, and I win you the Golden Boot last year in an average team that doesn't get top 4, and I am challenging for the Golden Boot again this year, and I am nothing but likeable, and the fans respond by swearing at me, telling me where to go, kicking my nice shiny Lamborghini, and I'm playing in a team that frankly isn't good enough for me, I wouldn't stay. Why would you stay? Why should he? Why should he sit there and take dog's abuse from fans who are entitled and do not know how lucky they are? I think it's a cultural shift, and coming up on that front, we're talking coaches and we're talking bullying.
Giving your team the coverage they deserve. Love Sport Radio.
You're in leakage, you're in leakage. You're in leakage, you're in leakage. You're in leakage. You're in leakage, you're in leakage.
Henna men. Pants and pads.
You're
discreet. Masculine.
You're
secure absorption zone. Buy online or in shops.
You're
Tenna men. Keep control.
Urine?
No.
Can you save money on your energy bills? Tony did, with help from a spokesman said.com. Getting people real savings.
I'm Tony from Northampton. My bills for gas and electricity had gone straight through the roof. I chose a spokesman said, and they saved me £2,800. It was so easy, I used them for my house and contents insurance too.
For help saving money on your energy bills, go to a spokesman said.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
Oh, it's okay. Let's face it, when your kids are ill, you'd do anything to help them feel better. But remember, antibiotics aren't always needed. You might not realise it, but taking antibiotics when you don't need them puts you and your family at risk of a longer and more severe illness. Help keep your family well. Always take your doctor's advice on antibiotics. Search NHS antibiotics. All better.
Before you set off on a long journey, remember to check your vehicle. Are your tyres correctly inflated? And are the treads deep enough? Have you got enough fuel? Is your oil level right? Checking your vehicle doesn't take long, but can prevent a breakdown or accident. And save you money. So, before you set off on a long journey, check your tyres, fuel and oil. Highways England, connecting the country.
This is Love Sport.
We've heard a few reports in the last year of coaches being accused of bullying. Peter Beardsley was banned from, or rather suspended from all football activity for 32 weeks for racially abusing players when he was working as a coach at Newcastle. Craig Bellamy, the former Newcastle man, has been investigated for bullying in his role coaching the kids at Cardiff City. And the latest name to add to that list is Burnley coach Steve Stone. The Daily Mail are reporting that the Burnley under-23s coach is currently under investigation for bullying and has been told to not come into work while the investigation is going on. Crucially, Stone previously worked as assistant coach under Beardsley, so there is at the very least a cultural link there. Martin, what do you make of this?
Well, it's a very difficult one, Johnny. Generations have changed. Teachers at school have changed. You know, from when I was at school, Johnny, you could get hit with a slipper or a stick and have your hand held out, and the headmaster would hit you with a stick across the hand, or give you the stick across the backside, and half a dozen of them. Not always so hard, but it was the meaning of it. You could get sent into the corner. You had to stand in the corridor. You had to have detentions. You were shouted at. Some teachers threw a whiteboard, you know, from the chalkboard marker, threw it across the room, and that was how discipline was. Nowadays, you're not allowed to shout at kids. Parents have told they're not allowed to smack their kid's leg or give them a slap on the hand. Discipline has totally changed as the years have gone by. And some of those names, and I am, Johnny, going to include myself within that group of three that have been mentioned there. Our generation, that's what we were brought up with.
Okay, but
and that's how we were trained, and that's how we were brought up. So they've taken some of those traits and those personality that they've come across. My boss at QPR was George Graham, and you could say to me that he was a bully. He intimidated, and if it wasn't good enough, he would tell you in no uncertain, never hit you, you know, but his face was intimidating, and it was full on, and he didn't accept anything being anything better than the best. And if you didn't do it, he'd make you run around a pitch about 20 times until you did do it.
Martin, I take your point on cultural differences, but I think you're being a bit too generous to these three men and a bit too hard on yourself when you lump yourself in that bracket with them. These are guys who have been accused of serious bullying, one of whom has been found guilty of racial bullying. I appreciate you're of the old school and you were brought up in a time where attitudes were perhaps different. But you are not a racist, and as far as I can tell, you are not a bully.
Johnny, hold on a minute. We're not talking about racism. We're talking about bullying.
I know. But
so that wasn't coming to the question.
But you're
it's
not a
been
bully.
What we've been talking about. There'll be many players that have worked with me, yes, that would definitely put me into that bracket. Without a shadow of a doubt. And there'll be a lot of managers and coaches looking at this and thinking, I've got to change my ways and I've got to do things differently. Yeah, I've made players do cross-country runs, and if it hasn't been good enough, they've had to go again. I've shouted at players. I've pointed my finger at players. I've called players names. I've had my temper and that mad dog face and horrible look, screaming at people to play better. Yes, I'm guilty of all those things. Very similar, I'd imagine, to what those fellas have. And I'm not talking the racial charges that were put against Peter Beardsley. I'm talking about our upbringing and how it was like and what it was like. And we've probably taken that through. And I'm sure they would probably realise, like Bellamy's statement last week, he never changed with the times.
On that point then, do you think... There are two options here. One is that the old school, who are now finding themselves accused of stubborn methods and being bullies...
What do you mean stubborn methods? I don't get that.
Well, not adapting.
Stubborn methods. That's how they've been brought up and how they've lived their life.
Fine.
So it's not stubborn methods.
Well, those methods that they've been brought up with are now being perceived as bullying. We've got two options.
Yeah.
The one is those methods are unacceptable. they are too hard, and they are bullying. The other is that the current generation, the younger generation that I am a part of, are soft and they are snowflakes and they are unable to handle a bit of tough love. Is that what's going on?
That's debatable. Another thing springs to mind, Johnny. I'm not avoiding your question. Is with the military. A lot of my work in the past has been done with military in mind. I've studied and I've been to places to learn from the military, training, practices, drills, punishment, up at 5 a.m, outside doing press-ups in the rain. Oh my God, I've been all sorts of looking back, crazy things that you wouldn't want to do now. And the military has had to dilute and change what they've been doing with our soldiers, obviously because the amount of mental illness and difficult times a lot of soldiers have had, and of course lost lives, which has been horrendous. So the military have had to change and our coaches have had to change. Where we can all learn is the newer generation and the younger generation of young coaches, people like, for argument's sake, Brendan Rodgers, how he's come through when he was a young player at Reading, where I watched him and played against him, and where he developed as a schoolboy coach, and his methods of training, talking, coaching, drills, discipline would be different, no doubt, to mine.
Well, Brendan Rodgers is only 2 years younger than Steve Stone, so age will be a factor, but is there an element of emotional intelligence here, being able to read individuals, knowing who needs to be sworn at and who needs an arm around them, who needs the carrot and who needs the stick? It may be that these three men just aren't very good at judging character.
It could be, but that doesn't make it okay to, I'm not sure that's the right word, lambast somebody in front of other people in the group. And somebody a few years ago once said to me, if you're going to have a go at somebody at half time, don't do it in front of the group. Take them into your office and do it in a calm way rather than shout at them with your finger and your horrible mad dog face. Don't do that. Bring them out, take them round the corner, sit down, have a chat with them, ask how they're feeling, ask how they feel they've done. This is at half time when you're losing 2-0 and the crowd are booing. You've got to keep that calmness, that composure, and reason with them rather than tell them they're useless and they ain't got no future and it's the end of the road. And I have found, Johnny, over the years, that way of doing it is a much better way than what I used to do in my past.
Yeah, and if there is bullying going on, that is clearly unacceptable. But I think there'll be a bit of both here. There will be absolutely unacceptable methods of coaching going on and people being weak, because I remember being at school and being at uni and all of that, and whenever we were really harshly treated by teachers or academics or whatever, there was an acceptance up to a point. But if we felt like they had crossed a line, I remember thinking, you are in trouble, sunshine. I wasn't scared. I was thinking, you've got that wrong. We will be having words and you'll be getting in trouble for it. This younger generation are not willing to take abuse from their seniors.
Johnny, when I was injured once at West Ham, I went in on a Sunday morning for treatment with our physio, as you always have to do on a Sunday morning. As I was pulling up to the training ground, I was about 1.5 miles away from 2 miles away from the training ground, a set of traffic lights out in the country, and there was a pub on the corner. As I drove past, I could see all our youth team players running up to the pub. I drove on to the training ground, got there, got into the car park, and I said to the much heralded coach, Tony Carr, where's all the boys? What are they doing running up the hill? And he went, we lost yesterday, so I've made them run up. And do you know what names were in that team?
Cole, Ferdinand, all of that. It's tough love.
Leslie from North Essex. I couldn't believe that after 5 minutes I'd saved over £900 on my energy bills. When my car insurance was then due for renewal, I went back to a spokesman said and reduced my premium by over £500. I thought that my home insurance was expensive. When I shopped around on a spokesman said, I saved a staggering £1,100. I've saved £2,500. I cannot believe it was that easy.
A spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
When your kids are ill, you just want to help them feel better. But you don't always need antibiotics. Get advice from your local pharmacy or search NHS Choices.
As a parent, you always want to protect your kids, so make sure their vaccinations are up to date. Measles and whooping cough are on the rise and can cause severe illness, but childhood vaccinations can help prevent them. Are your child's up to date? Find out more. Search online for NHS vaccinations.
If you fall asleep at the wheel, you'll put your life in danger, and the lives of others as well. Before you feel tired, pull off the road into a services or other safe area. Drink some strong coffee, and take a quick nap while the caffeine kicks in.
If you're having a nap, you've left your lights on, sir.
Right, cheers.
Think. Don't drive tired.
Exercise. It doesn't have to mean Lycra or a fancy gym membership. All you need is 10 minutes and you. Because a regular 10-minute brisk walk is a great way to get more active. Whether that's walking to the shops or getting off the bus to stop early. Picking up the pace and getting your heart pumping can make a real difference to your health. So, to see how much brisk walking you're doing and how you can fit more into your day, download the free Active 10 app, because there's only one you.
We got lots to talk about. Arsenal crisis continues. The club captain Xhaka has been offered counselling and hasn't apologised to the fans, while Derby County have threatened club captain Richard Keogh with the sack unless he accepts a pay cut. All that and more, but first, the news.
On digital radio, online, mobile and smart speaker.
This is Love Sport News.
From the Sky News Centre at 5, the head of the London Fire Brigade has been defending herself following the first report into the Grenfell Tower tragedy. Will Rowe has more.
Why they bring my dad not alive if they've been to every single floor?
Hamed Jafari's dad was one of the 72 who died in the blaze 2 years ago. An inquiry says more lives could have been saved if residents were told to get out earlier instead of being advised to stay put. But Commissioner Danny Cotton is refusing to resign.
I'm standing here and I'm taking responsibility for London Fire Brigade.
The Prime Minister says the community was failed.
No apology will ever make good the loss suffered.
The second phase of the inquiry begins next year.
Boris Johnson and Jeremy Corbyn have clashed over the NHS in the Commons. They were taking part in probably the last Prime Minister's questions before the Christmas election. Labour think the Tories have run the health service into a crisis. The PM said Jeremy Corbyn risks the whole system because he'd wreck the economy. Lib Dem MP Sarah Wollaston thinks the December poll means voters can properly scrutinise Mr Johnson's Brexit deal.
We've got the actual deal in front of us instead of the fantasy deal that was promised in the referendum. And people can really examine it, warts and all, and say, is that what we meant by Brexit?
The pilot of a helicopter that crashed into a pub in Glasgow consciously took a risk. An inquiry says the pilot ignored low fuel warnings. 10 people were killed when the Police Scotland aircraft came down in 2013. A man's been jailed for a minimum of 20 years for murdering his pregnant wife in 1999. Debbie Griggs hasn't been seen since she disappeared from their family home in Deal in Kent. Fiat Chrysler is in talks with the owner of Peugeot and Vauxhall about a tie-up. They want to create one of the world's biggest car makers. And Harrods has announced plans for a new beauty brand opening its first standalone shops outside of London. The first H-Beauty store will open at Lakeside in Essex. That's the latest. I'm Annie Green.
Love Sport Radio. On digital radio, online, mobile and smart speaker. This is the Posh Boys on Love Sport Drive.
You're listening to the Posh Boys on Love Sport Drive. I tell you what, our conversation about bullying, about discipline, about changing attitudes in football ran across the news. We're going to be picking up on this later in the show. Get in touch, 0208 70 20 558. What is bullying? Are these young players being snowflakes for complaining about treatment at the hands of coaches, or actually do the coaches need to change their methods? We got plenty more to talk about to boot. Your top stories this evening. The Arsenal crisis continues. Club captain Granit Xhaka has been offered counselling by the club, but the midfielder is still yet to apologise to fans after his reaction to being substituted on Sunday. Derby County have threatened their captain Richard Keogh with the sack unless he accepts a pay cut to stay at the club. And it's less than 3 days until the World Cup final, but will George Ford or Owen Farrell start the game at fly half? Martin, it's got to be Ford, hasn't it? I know Farrell's a top player, but they both played against the All Blacks and they were both brilliant.
Yeah, both got to play, Johnny, and he ain't going to change that, is he, Steady Eddie?
In a funny way, he might.
No,
he's the kind of coach where I find him very, very hard to predict.
Yeah, he is hard to predict, but I can't imagine he's going to change it now. The performance against the All Blacks are awesome. And didn't the All Blacks actually thrash South Africa at the beginning of the tournament?
It wasn't a thrashing, but it was a comfortable win, yeah.
What was the score? He beat him by 20 points.
They beat him by sort of 10 points.
10 points?
Not a thrashing.
23-13, yeah. I think we'll win, Johnny.
Well, I think we'll win. And in terms of not changing, is that an element of just backing your best team to be better than their best team? We don't need any cloak and dagger. We don't need any mirror and smoke or any of that. We just need to go, yeah, there's our team. You know how to prepare for it. You can't handle us.
They can't handle us. We're far too good for them. The one I don't like in their team is that little blonde guy, that little rat.
Faf de Klerk.
Yeah, him. I don't like him. I think he'll get it big time. He gets it and kicks it every time. He's always there, and he's like that little kid. Ugh. No, we'll just dominate. It'll be total domination, start to finish. We'll win comfortably. There's no doubt about it, Johnny. No doubt.
You're a confident
no,
man.
only because we're good, Johnny.
Yeah, no, I know. But you should be confident.
It's only because we're good. That Vinny Pola that you told me about the other week, how good he was. I think it was Guy that said, and I asked Guy, how good is he? Oh my God, what was he like the other day?
He was absolutely
a true Englishman, I'd say.
A true Englishman. We'll be speaking to former England winger James Simpson-Daniel in just a moment about the Rugby World Cup final. But before we do, let's hear from former England fullback Ian Hunter, who joined Love Sport Breakfast this morning, and he was asked what sort of challenge Elliot Daly will face on Sunday.
Well, a lot of high balls.
Yeah.
Certainly going to do that. South Africa, I don't see going out changing their style of play. Everything for South Africa revolves around Faf de Klerk, and their set piece will be a lot of catching and driving, and then the box kicks. You know, will be important for that. Both, not just Daly, but the back three are on point on this. So I see a lot of ball going up on Daly. If you're asking me whether I'm 100% sold Elliot Daly at fullback, I'm still not. I thought he played very well last week. It was probably one of his better games. So I definitely see South Africa targeting him, certainly with kicks either off Faf de Klerk or off Pollard.
Former England wing James Simpson-Daniel joins us now. Good evening, James. Thanks for your time. What's your take? We're talking a lot about Faf de Klerk's frequent kicking. How can Arsenal and indeed England, who will be playing in the World Cup final, don't know quite what happened to my brain there, deal with it?
I think, look, this is nothing new. You know, we've been playing the Six Nations now for several seasons when we haven't exactly been entertained by the best brand of rugby. So this isn't a new tactic that's come along. This is ultimately, you know, very much the same thing that he's experienced every time you play against Ireland and every time you play against Wales, isn't it? You know, that's nothing new. I actually think that South Africa might try and play a little bit more rugby. I think we'll see a kicking game from, you know, deep in field position, but then I think as they move up the field to centre field and high field position, I think they'll actually throw the ball around a bit more.
And in terms of our selection, that fly half is still the big question. Would you go for Ford? Would you go for Farrell?
Well, I think one thing we've got to say, no matter what your thoughts are of Eddie Jones, he's played it tactically fantastic so far. His selections have been spot on. People kind of were questioning whether that was the right thing to do when he dropped Ford. It worked perfect that game. He brought Ford on. He then helped boss the game for the remaining part of the game, and then he started him the other day, went back to type, and it was perfect. I thought the combination between him and Farrell worked outstanding. I thought Ford bossed the game with his kicking boot, and then and helped put us in the right areas, and also he made the right decisions about which ball carriers to use and which decoy runners to use. So, you know what? The safe option would be to go back to Farrell, but I hope that he sticks with it and goes, you know what, that's the best England performance we've seen last weekend, starting Ford and Farrell together. I'm going to stick with Ford.
And that's not the only selection question, of course. Would you be tempted to move Anthony Watson or even Jack Noel to fullback?
And this is the brilliant headache that Eddie Jones has had this World Cup, isn't it? We haven't even mentioned Cockin the Singer. This is a guy who, he made a grand entrance when he first came on the scene. He's a young lad still, but physically he's he packs a punch in attack, and he offers something totally different. Jack Noel is very much a different player to Cockin the Singer. He's someone that's almost smaller, but with a more power-based, lower centre of gravity, really busy around the park. And ultimately, it's down to Eddie Jones to choose which combinations he thinks is going to be the most effective against South Africa. I personally believe that South Africa are going to man up defensively, probably slightly better than New Zealand did. I think that physical dominance that we were winning at, we might not get the same success against South Africa. So Eddie has got to work out what type of a backline he wants to go for, one that is a bit more lightweight but have to throw it around in a cup final. It takes a lot of balls to do that. Or if he wants to go a bit more safer, Farrell at 10, conservative big ball carriers with Tuolangi, maybe a Cockin the Singer, and low-risk rugby. But I think Eddie Jones wants to win this World Cup by playing a bit. I don't think he does want to get stuck in an arm wrestle.
There was so much build-up to the All Blacks, so much expectation, so much hype, so much pressure, and the performance was then so good. Are we in danger of a World Cup final actually being a bit of an anti-climax? How are the boys going to get themselves up for it all over again?
I think the boys getting up for it is not the issue. You've just pointed out there, it's a World Cup final. It does not take a lot of getting up for. I think where is going to be tricky from the outside looking in is we are going to big this up now. If we get a quarter of the quality of rugby that we got in the semi-final in this final on Saturday, that would be counted as a really exciting final. Generally in one-off matches, in the cup finals and in the Six Nations, deciders, you see a pretty ugly brand of rugby. Look at the contrast between the two games last weekend. Ours was outstanding, really entertaining on the eye, good brand of rugby. And then you look to the other semi-final, the first half of it, I think everyone was falling asleep watching it, the Wales versus South Africa game. And I think the danger is when you come to high-risk rugby is that you just revert to type and take all risk off the table, and that's when it is a pretty dire affair. So there's no issues with the lads. They'll get up for it. Both sides will be up for this one. Could it be a dire affair? It could be. It could be attritional.
We don't mind that. If it's attritional, a war of attrition which England win is absolutely fine.
That's the point. I was with someone today and they said, you know what, this person, I'm not going to say him because I don't want to embarrass him. He goes, I reckon England by 20 on the weekend. And I said, gosh, I'd take England by 2 winning ugly. This is a World Cup final. We've been blessed by seeing loads of rugby so far this World Cup. We've seen England, think of what England have had to do to get to the final. Yes, we had a game cancelled, but we've had the hardest group with Argentina and France. We've then had to play Australia and beat them. Then we had to play New Zealand and beat them. Then we're going to play South Africa in the final to beat them. It's a hell of a run of matches to try and win. And if you can do that, you deserve it. So for me, I don't mind if it is low-risk rugby. If it's really disciplined and controlled and we manage to get an ugly victory, I think we'd all take that.
How many do you think we'll actually win by?
Honestly, I think we could be up in a bit of trouble this weekend. I know I'm not allowed to say it, and I shouldn't say it. That was world class by England last weekend. New Zealand will feel they never got going. We never let them get going. But I'm sure of this. This South African side, bear in mind, this is the same South African side that turned over New Zealand not long before the World Cup as well. So let's not scratch this side out. This is a decent South Africa team. They're physical. They've got some speedsters on the wing that are powerful and explosive. They've got a fly half who's got a very strong kicking game and a scrum half that will boss it. I think it will be. If we win, I think it'll be very tight. I don't see us breezing past this and winning by 2 scores. I think this could be within a 6-point game.
Wow. That's a warning. I thought we'd
Certainly
win by about 30 points. I thought that was useless.
Brought you back down to earth, hasn't it, Mark?
No such thing as a hard cup final, is it? Just an easy cup final by 30.
James, thanks for bringing Martin back down to earth a little bit. You've slightly knocked him off his perch. I think giving him a bit more of a realistic expectation.
Whilst you were talking, James, I was thinking back to last summer's, which we were all looking forward to with great excitement, the Champions League final. And do you remember how bland and dull that was? Because obviously there was an early goal, but for the rest of the game, the players found it very difficult to perform at the top level when it came to the final, whereas the semi-finals have been brilliant. Perhaps this weekend's going to be sort of similar to that. As long as we win, I don't care.
You're exactly right. And just the final point on that, you can scratch over it, can't you, in a final? Because the next day, it's still the winner of the Champions League or the World Cup.
Yeah.
You know, forget the actual performance. You'll cover up with the writers and the reporters will cover up with that and say, yeah, it wasn't the prettiest on the eye. That's probably an understatement. It could be an absolute dire affair, but they've managed to get there and win it. So that's where you give them the credit for. Tactically, the coach still gets the same praise whether he wins ugly or, you know, whether he wins or, you know, you'd rather win ugly than lose 4-3 in the Champions final, I'd have thought.
Absolutely, yeah.
And that's the whole point behind it.
Yeah, and you know, if you think back to the last final between these two teams, I think it's fair to say that as a game of rugby, it was one for the purists. I was going to say there were no tries scored in that game, but I know Mark Cueto, who spoke to us earlier this week, would probably disagree with that slightly. I would as well. But James, looking at the coaches a bit more specifically, particularly Eddie Jones, obviously we spoke so much about the mind games last week, but this week I feel that we're sort of starting to look ahead just beyond this weekend. And I know he's got a contract for another couple of years, but regardless of what happens on Saturday, do you want to see him remain as the coach? Has he got more to give England as a rugby nation? Or do you feel like even if we win this weekend, his time is probably up?
Look, for me, I feel that it's a bit like the Clive Woodward thing. I think if you win a World Cup, you step down then, and you could never be, you know, everyone will always love you. You'll be a legend. If you win a World Cup and you hang on, you've set a really high bar there, haven't you? And that's what the best coaches do. You know, let's not discount that. Look at, you know, people in football with Sir Alex Ferguson. The guys that are the best manage to raise the bar to the top level and keep it there.
And Steve Hansen
and
as well.
Back that up. Yeah, exactly. Exactly that. After they've won something, they can then go on and do it over and over and over. But who could blame them if they did want to step down and go, you know what, I'll take my win and become an England, you know, a legend of a coach for England. And I wouldn't be discrediting Eddie if that's what he chose to do, because look at the road that he's had here. He started with England, took us on a great run. Then obviously things didn't go so well. We had a very poor Six Nations, and people were really after him then. And you really were, like, everyone was after him, because when Eddie's talking it up and he's winning, it's easy to like. You get away with it. But when you're talking up and you don't perform, the results aren't there, people love hanging you out. So for me, he's talked his way up all the way through this World Cup. He's got us to the final. If he manages to get over that final hurdle, if I was in his shoes, I'd be going, you know what, I'm just going to step aside now, let someone else come in and just be a legend of a coach.
Right off into the sunset in a blaze of glory. Yeah. And James,
yeah, why not? An amazing success story for England if he does manage it.
Lastly then, if you're in that dressing room minutes before the first whistle, what's your last message to the players?
Oh, look, I think the way Eddie Jones is and the way that he's always got a smile with it, I think he's going to tell the lads to enjoy. I think that's what he's going to say. He's always going to. I don't think he's going to want them to play within themselves. So I think he's going to say, you know what, lads, go out there and you enjoy yourself, enjoy the occasion. You've done all the graft and the hard work to get here. There's no point in us discussing specific tactics. You've done that in the build-up to the week. Go out and enjoy yourself. Enjoy the occasion.
I think that is the perfect message. James, great to speak to you. Thank you for your time. James Simpson-Daniel there, former England wing. It's not going to be easy, but we're going to do it. Surely we'll get it over the line. Coming up, talking a bit of Derby County.
This is Love Sport.
Brilliant. I've finally quit.
I can keep up with my kids now.
I feel like I've got my life back.
It's an amazing feeling when you stop smoking. Experience it for yourself with help from Smoke Free. Our range of free support can help you quit for good. From our app to emails, face-to-face and online communities. Search Smoke Free. Because there's only one you.
Are you paying way too much for your energy bills? A spokesman said could help you save big money. With electricity costs continuing to rise, you could save hundreds of pounds by shopping around. Just go to aspokesmansaid.com and look for the very best value energy deals on the market. Don't waste your hard-earned cash. You could be on a much cheaper deal. Go to aspokesmansaid.com.
Fighting for you, saving you money.
I love my brother. We do fun things like playing together. I like having hugs with Freddie. Freddie gives the best hugs. Freddie used to be very poorly, and the doctor said he might need a new liver. Then one day, a very nice person gave their liver to Freddie. It was amazing. We were so happy. Now he's around to give me more hugs than ever.
Tell your family you want to save lives. To find out more, visit organdonation.nhs.uk.
If you're driving on a motorway and you see a red X sign overhead, you need to change lanes safely. Driving in a red X lane is an offence. Red X's are there for a reason, to protect you and others from danger. The lane may be blocked by a broken down vehicle or road workers, or the lane may be needed for the emergency services. So if you see a red X, change lanes safely. Highways England, connecting the country.
Making small changes to your lifestyle could improve your chances of staying healthier longer. Start now by taking our free How Are You quiz. Just search 1U.
Love sport.
It's being reported in the papers today that Derby club captain Richard Keogh has been given Sophie's choice. He can accept a serious pay cut or he can accept being sacked for gross misconduct. That's after he sustained a serious knee injury in the Derby County drink drive scandal, which saw Mason Bennett and Tom Lawrence lose their driving licences for 2 years. From a manager's point of view, Martin, how are you feeling here? Because there must be a frustration that your club captain and one of your starting centre-halves has picked up an injury. Equally, you know him as a person. You probably like him, you trust him as a person, you work with him every day. Surely you want to help him in his recovery, don't you?
Yeah, you do. But this is probably coming from the owner. The owner's, as you just said, paying him £1.3 million a year. He's 33 years old and the club captain. Coming to the end of that night, they were allowed to have a beer because cars were put on by the football club to get them home safely. And he's chosen not to go home and stay back drinking with two players and then allow them. And I say allow because as a senior player, he should have said, "Oi, give me your car keys. You ain't getting in that car. You're getting in that club car and going home in a taxi. There ain't no way you're leaving here." But they should have all left at the same point, and the captain should have been the catalyst of making them all go home at the same time. The fact the club have laid on cars to get them home, I reckon Mel Morris would be absolutely furious. 1.3 million a year, you've got a responsibility to make sure you do things properly, and they haven't. And the fact he's picked up a knee injury whilst in a car crash with drunk, that I'm not sure it's gross misconduct, to be honest, Johnny.
He's not driving the car.
No, he's a passenger in the car, so he's not. So I'm not sure how they can class it, or this reporter can say it's going to be gross misconduct, because the two players that were driving drunk, allegedly, or is that definitely?
No, they have pled guilty and they have been found guilty.
So how they've not been sacked for gross misconduct is beyond me.
Would you have wanted? I mean, obviously, you probably wouldn't get to make the decision as the manager. But if you were in charge at Derby County, would your feeling have been these guys should not still be here?
Well. What a big question. That's a very, very difficult question to answer, Johnny, because Lawrence is one of their best players. He's a quality player. Bennett is kind of okay. He's an okay player. He doesn't always start in their team, I don't think. I stand to be corrected on that one. But the leader of that group has been Keogh. What would you do? This would be one that goes upstairs and goes above the manager. This will be dealt with by the chief exec and the owner. The manager would have had to call them and tell them what would have happened. The three of them would have had a meeting. mark my words, if it had been 3 players that were young pros, not in the team, they would have been sacked immediately and then gone. But he's got a business to run, a multi-million-pound business, looking forward to getting or trying to get into the Premier League, and he needs those players in his business to help them succeed, to make, 160 million a year to be in the Premier League. Then you can see how he said, we'll fine you and get on with it. You can see how they would do that. And morally, Johnny, probably ain't right. But from his business point of view, he's got to also think of his business rather than just the moral high ground.
And the other element of drama for Derby County is, of course, the impending arrival of England's all-time record scorer, a certain Mr. Wayne Rooney. If you were the manager at Derby at the moment, you're sitting 16th in the table. Your job is, as the old Love Sport Drive proverb goes, profoundly under pressure. Do you want Wazza walking through that door?
Oh, yeah. You try and get him through sooner rather than later, without a shadow of a doubt. He's got to wait till January, ain't they?
Yeah.
For the rules, but, because by the time January comes round, they could be, further down the league, and they could be then starting to get a bit shaky. Now, as a manager, you want the good players playing, and after losing Mason Mount and Harry Wilson and Tamori back onto the loans that they had last year, I wonder and I hope Wayne can spark some creative chances, make some goals, some assists, and score a few goals to help the manager. I don't see it as, oh dear, Wayne's coming, I'm going to lose my job because Wayne's going to be the manager. I don't see it like that. I see it as get as many good players as you can. You need those characters around, and he's going to need Wayne now. After losing out with Keogh, he's going to need Wayne out there doing his stuff.
My worry, Martin, on that front is, well, it could go one of two ways. Wayne Rooney is super experienced. He's seen, I know, as a mentor to a lot of the young players he's worked with at different clubs and with England and all the rest of it. But he's also shown, I would say, a slightly worrying and disappointing lack of maturity, even in the last couple of years, on the pitch and off it, by the way. On the pitch, we saw him getting sent off, didn't we, a couple of times towards the end of his time in the MLS, growing increasingly frustrated, particularly with the referees, it seemed. He almost, did he not shake a fourth official, or he shouted in his face as he came off the pitch? He was like, every week, and added a couple of extra words that I can't say. And for a guy who's now 34 years old, as he turned the other day, for a guy who's played as much as he has, I like seeing that passion, but I think as well, when you see him do the hot-headed stuff on the pitch, you see him maybe elbowing someone or tackling someone too high, you think, have you not learned by now? It's all well and good to get passionate, but you're still costing your team in real important games because you're unable to control that temper. And off the pitch, as a coach, as you'll be able to relate to, of course, you've got to be able to have that calmness and that ability to really sort of get the best out of players rather than getting worked up, because not everyone's going to be as gifted as Wayne Rooney. Nowhere near it, not at Derby County.
No. I think he's coming in to be on the staff rather than be first team coach. He's coming in to be player coach, doing little bits of shooting drills and warm-up drills and ball drills, that sort of stuff. He's not actually going to take the team.
The manager will do that. Picking up cones.
So it'd be no, I don't think he'll be picking up cones. No. So I think he'll have a role there. As for the other side of it, then if Wayne hasn't got that side to him, then you're not getting Wayne Rooney. You're taking on board those traits that he has got. He does push the boundaries. He does do extraordinary things in certain situations. Some of the goals that he's scored recently have been quite unbelievable, and the passes for assists have been quite brilliant. Whether the pace of the game in the USA matches the championship, sometimes twice a week that they have to play, is going to be the big question. Can he play as a lazy number 10 that plays around the pitch? Because from what I've seen over there, he's been playing in midfield rather than up front because he hasn't got the speed now to get behind. But he's an asset, and they will need him after losing Mason Mount and Harry Wilson. They will definitely need him in their attacking if they're going to get the goals to climb the table. And maybe, just maybe, nick a playoff place. But it'll be tough for him.
Well, we haven't seen much slowing down in either British cycling or Team Sky in the last few years. They're moving at serious pace, But they've now got a little bit of a controversy of their own on their plate, because former British cycling and Team Sky Dr. Richard Freeman is currently taking part in his medical tribunal, and he's going to admit that he told a lot of lies in the past relating to purchasing testosterone, or rather testo-gel, in May 2011. Previously, he said, I didn't order it. I never ordered it. Now he's saying, OK, I ordered it, but it wasn't for an athlete. It was for a non-competing member of staff. The obvious response to that is, if you were lying before, why should we believe that you are not lying now? In terms of what he ordered, it was 30 sachets of testo-gel, which of course includes testosterone. We've done a bit of digging here, right? So per each sachet, you've got 5 grams of gel, which is 50 milligrams of testosterone. That is effectively one dose. From the patient's use leaflet from Testogel itself, you were told the recommended dose is 1 sachet. You can have it adjusted by your doctor, but never to more than 10 grams, i.e. 2 sachets per day. So your daily dose is a sachet per day. He ordered 30 sachets. If I were being cynical, I might suggest that a Tour de France takes roughly 3 weeks. If you were looking...
Trying to look at the date. When did it arrive? May the 16th, 2011. When's the Tour de France? July, isn't it?
I believe so. So if I were feeling cynical, and it's very lucky that I'm not, but if I were, I could suggest that arrived immediately before a Tour de France and is exactly the right amount of Testogel to give to one athlete throughout the entire tour. Of course,
remember, there's a difference between what an actual dose would be for a medical reason and what you would be able to use and get away with on some sort of drug test.
That is true.
And it would actually be even less, I guess you could argue.
What does testosterone do to a cyclist?
Well, this is the question. And firstly, of course, they are denying absolutely that it was given to a cyclist. But the idea of Testogel, if you read its own mission statement, is it is for men over 40, basically to improve virility. It's not quite Viagra.
Virility? What's that?
It involves your sexual potence, Martin.
Oh, right.
So thank you for making me say that on the radio. It is. My mother listens to this show. It's in that neck of the woods. It is also for things like bone density, but it makes you stronger.
It's stronger, and it's about powers of recovery as well.
Hold on a minute. So if they were taking that sachet for 3 weeks. Prior to the Tour de France.
Massive advantage. Huge.
Can you imagine what that cyclist is going to be?
I bet Phil for his girlfriend. I bet they had some fun on those big team motos, didn't they?
Blimey.
All that testosterone.
Imagine going up that hill. Oh my God. With the blokes absolutely full of themselves.
They wear quite tight gear as well, don't they?
Oh my God. Is there any footage you can study to see what's happened?
We need before and after.
What have you made of this story, Mark? When it broke yesterday, what did you think? Because it's taken a long time to pin Dr. Richard Freeman down, to actually get him to appear in front of this tribunal. Of course, pulled out one early this year on medical grounds, ironically himself.
Corrupt, mate, totally. Absolutely, totally.
If you rock up somewhere where it is of the utmost importance that you are trustworthy in telling the truth, and the first thing you say is,
I lied in the past.
I've told a lot of lies.
But it is important to note that he is denying any doping allegations.
Yeah, of course.
Do you know what I would love, Johnny? Guy, what I would absolutely love, because you're really good at this, Guy, and you protect him and look after him. I would love Richard Freeman just to be absolutely honest and reveal everything.
Well,
no secrets.
What he is
lay it all
implying...
on the table and let's find out who's cheated, who took all the bits and pieces, and everything about all the cycling, because it's so murky, isn't it?
Because somewhere 30 sachets of Testogel have been used, probably by people generally, but possibly athletes working and riding for either British Cycling and or Team Sky, now Team Ineos, the biggest, most successful team in the last decade, the biggest, most successful country in cycling in the last decade. We want the answers. I don't know if we're ever going to get them.
Wouldn't it be good if we did, though?
It would be brilliant.
If he just sat there and said, I'm going to tell you everything.
It would be fantastic. And that's why we'll be watching it with bated breath on tenterhooks.
Freeman is alleging that the sachets were not for an athlete. They were ordered on behalf...
He's bound to say that. He's a liar.
Well, he's saying they were ordered on behalf of ex-British Cycling and Team Sky coach, technical director no less, Shane Sutton. Initially, there were suggestions they could have been for an athlete who worked with Mr. Sutton, not least Bradley Wiggins. But the suggestion now is that they were ordered for Sutton to use personally. Sutton himself has denied any knowledge of it. He's denying the claim and is having absolutely none of it. They, of course, would need to corroborate his medical records with that claim. And unfortunately for Mr. Freeman, they do not match up. This one is going to run and run. As Guy says, we're going to have more on it as the case develops. Coming up, we're talking to Arsenal legend Nigel Winterburn.
This is Love Sport.
Have you had enough of extortionate energy bills? A spokesman said could help you find the cheapest energy deals on the market. Don't take our word for it. There's hundreds of spokesman said customers who've saved big. Brian from Derbyshire saved £400 on his energy bills, and Tony from Northampton saved a massive £2,800 on his gas and electric. A spokesmansaid.com, the leading price comparison site where you can switch to the cheapest energy tariffs on the market in just minutes.
Thespokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
As a busy mum, you're juggling loads of things. And when your kids are ill, you just want to help them feel better. But you don't always need antibiotics to help them get better. For things like sore throats, coughs and colds, you can get advice from your local pharmacy. And you don't need an appointment. To find your nearest pharmacy, search NHS Choices.
Full of skill, full of flair, full of desire. Fulham FC is full of fire.
Oh, what a goal!
Be there at Craven Cottage as Fulham continue their surge towards the top of the Sky Bet Championship. Watch the unmissable action live in SW6, home of London's original football club.
Absolutely brilliant!
Grab your tickets now at fulhamfc.com.
Don't get caught out in the great energy price hike as large firms look to charge you more. If you want to save money on your energy bills, it's not too late to see what's on the market. With rising gas and electricity bills, don't get caught out wasting your money on expensive tariffs. A spokesman said will show you the very best value deals available. Check out a spokesmansaid.com and you could be using your savings to put towards a well-earned holiday.
With a spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
My mum and dad say that I don't need lots of sugar. I'm sweet enough already. So we used the Change for Life food scanner app to find out how much sugar is in our food and drink. It's surprising how much we found. So I put my detective hat on to find the healthier choices. Woohoo! Found one, Mum! You can be food smart too. Download the free Change for Life food scanner app today.
When your kids are ill, you just want to help them feel better. But you don't always need antibiotics. Get advice from your local pharmacy or search NHS Choices.
This is Love Sport.
You're listening to the Posh Boys on Love Sport Drive with me, Johnny Burrow, Guy Watts, and Love Sport's very own Martin Allen. And Guy Watts has all your latest sporting headlines and weather.
Yeah, just a couple for you this afternoon. Darren Goff's been confirmed as a bowling consultant ahead of England's Test cricket series in New Zealand next month. The former fast bowler took over 200 wickets in Tests and one-day internationals for the national team. He'll work with England's current seamers during the warm-up matches for the longer-form contest. There's a couple of big fixtures in the League Cup fourth round tonight. Chelsea host Manchester United at Stamford Bridge. Arsenal face Liverpool at Anfield, and Aston Villa take on Wolves. We'll have a bit of build-up and team news for those games for you in the next hour and a half or so. Defending champion Alina Svitolina has beaten Simona Halep to become the first player to secure a place in the semi-finals of the 2019 WTA tennis finals in China. The Ukrainian world number 8 won in straight sets to guarantee her progress with one group game left. Halep plays Karolina Pliskova in her final game and can still go through. Weather-wise, dry for most in northern England overnight tonight, but rain in parts of southern England and South Wales. Mainly dry elsewhere with clear spells and a patchy frost. Tomorrow, dry for most with some sunshine, cloudy across parts of southern England and South Wales with early rain easing. Meanwhile, more rain spreading into Northern Ireland and later into Western Scotland. That's the latest for you here on Love Sport Drive.
Thanks, Guy. And we are talking a lot of Arsenal on the show this afternoon, not least about Granit Xhaka. The club are offering him therapy after that incident versus Crystal Palace on Sunday. Do you feel that he really is going to need it, Martin?
Yeah, probably. He'd have been hurt over the booing. He'd have been hurt over the whole situation. I'm sure, hopefully by now, I hope by now that he'd realise that his actions and his the way he conducted himself, he's hurt an awful lot of people as well. and he's got a bit of work to do. I can't get my head round how he hasn't apologised yet and come out and just said, I'm ever so sorry, I've overreacted, I've done the wrong thing, to give himself a chance to get back and play for Arsenal. And if he doesn't do that, I can't personally see a way back for him.
It's very, very hard, but if he came in and did the full kissing the badge, pumping his chest, scored a winner, played really well 3 weeks running, football's a fickle game. They would forget it, wouldn't they?
Yeah, they probably would. But, I think that initial thing to help get himself back going again, he's got to recognise that, that's unacceptable conduct and behaviour. He can't do that. He just can't do it. He's done it to his manager, he's done it to his teammates, he's done it to the old club. And the paying public to diss them off like that, that ain't good news.
Lots of Arsenal fans are holding the manager at least partly responsible, saying, listen, he let the players choose their captain. They ended up with a captain who is no captain at all. This is symptomatic of his lack of leadership, and the club need to replace him. What would you say to them?
I would suggest he's asked the players' opinion for who they think would be a good captain, and then of course at the end of the day it would be the manager's choice. I am not 100% sure, Johnny, and I would stand to be corrected on this, that it's not just the players that have chosen the manager, it's their input into who he chose, and there's a big difference, I think.
I see where you're coming from, absolutely. If he were to go, there's been a lot of talk about who his replacement might be, and the new bookies' favourite, as of today, is Jose Mourinho. Now, this has sent the Arsenal fans on Twitter into meltdown. I've seen people saying I would rather be relegated than have Jose Mourinho as manager of my football club. What's your take? Would he be a good appointment?
Well, I've got to be honest with you, Johnny. I'm not really a lover of these sort of what-if questions. He's the manager. He's got the job. He's got a difficult job following on from Arsene Wenger. I think he conducts himself in the right way. I've got doubts only because he had a problem with Koscielny in the summer. He's had a problem now with Mesut Ozil all the way through. And now, as it comes from Saturday, he's got a massive problem there with Xhaka. So that's 3 captain-type, senior, leader-type players within his squad that he's had massive issues with, which have come out public and have not been handled very well. That would be my main doubt about whether he was to go. When the back four, the left back comes in Tierney, the right back Bellerin comes back from fully back from injury, and then who's that other centre back you like they're holding? Whether he's good enough to play week in, week out and improve them, only time will tell. But I feel as though it's just a little bit early to start going down that road. Would Mourinho do it? For somehow or other, Johnny, every time a club has a bad run, Mourinho's name comes up into the forefront, whether it be any of the countries that are in Europe at the moment. The other week it was China, then he was going to Germany, then he was going back to Spain if Zidane loses the next game. I think he's got a good PR media team, and after the performance of his team at Manchester United last year, who would want that?
Nigel Winterburn has suggested that Patrick Vieira, not now, but eventually, would be a really good managerial candidate for Arsenal. He's saying keep an eye on Vieira, who, of course, was very highly rated at New York City FC. Some tipped him for the Manchester City job within the City football group. He's now at OGC Nice. They are 15th in Ligue 1, doing a decent job. More broadly, do you think club legends as managers works? Because it seems to be clicking for Lampard at Chelsea.
Well, it's clicking for Lampard at Chelsea because he's got a fantastic group of players. The young players that have come through and they've been out on loan doing their stuff. And people forget they spent over 100 million. I know they've got a transfer ban, but for somehow or other they got spent over 100 million pounds on players come this summer, and then the in of Mason Mount and Tomori from their loans at Derby. That was like another 2 players coming into the team. And Tammy Abraham coming from Aston Villa, where he's done a fantastic job. That's another player coming into their team. And they've still got a couple of other good young players that haven't even properly made the breakthrough, ready to come in. And then for the American lad that's not been playing to score an hat-trick the other day, what was he, another Pulisic? Was he
67? I think
how do you say his name? Pulisic.
Pulisic. So normally it would be Pulisic, but in his case, because of his background, it's Pulisic.
Okay, so Pulisic coming in as well. Frank has got a fantastic team. I think when we sat down in the summer, Johnny, when we were discussing Frank, I think I said there and then that he was going to be a fantastic manager, most intelligent footballer I've ever come across. One of the most intelligent human beings I've ever met. He's fantastically bright. Having worked with all the top managers, some people would just sort of say yeah, and other people would absorb it and learn from them. And I think Frank would fit into that category. And I think he's got that place absolutely buzzing for the next few years. It's going to be very, very exciting. And as for Steven Gerrard, I think he's done a brilliant job at Rangers. For the challenge now to be overtaking or challenging Celtic, I think he's done brilliantly well.
He has indeed. Coming up next, we're going to have that man Nigel Winterburn on the line.
Love Sport Radio, the station giving fans a voice.
Full of skill, full of flair, full of desire. Fulham FC is full of fire.
Oh, what a goal!
Be there at Craven Cottage as Fulham continue their surge towards the top of the Sky Bet Championship. Watch the unmissable action live in SW6, home of London's original football club.
Absolutely brilliant.
Grab your tickets now at fulhamfc.com.
Don't get caught out by rising energy bills this year. Leading price comparison site A Spokesman Said can help you save money in just minutes. Plus, sign up to A Spokesman Said to get the latest super cheap collective energy deals. These offers are such great value, they aren't even available direct from the energy companies. Savvy customers have saved over £10 million from collective energy deals. Go to aspokesmansaid.com and you could be saving big money on your bills.
With aspokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
As a parent, you always want to protect your kids. So make sure their vaccinations are up to date. Measles and whooping cough are on the rise and can cause severe illness. But childhood vaccinations can help prevent them. Are your child up to date? Find out more. Search online for NHS vaccinations.
Driving too close to the car in front gives you less time to react. You may not realise that you're tailgating. Leave a 2-second gap between you and the vehicle in front. When it's wet, leave a 4-second gap. By staying back, you give yourself time to react. Stay safe. Stay back. Highways England, connecting the country.
Making small changes to your lifestyle could improve your chances of staying healthier longer. Start now by taking our free How Are You quiz. Just search 1U.
Love Sport.
It's the Posh Boys on Love Sport Drive. We're talking Granit Xhaka. He's been a naughty boy, he's having counselling, and he still hasn't apologised to those Arsenal fans he swore at. They're a passionate bunch, none more passionate than club legend Nigel Winterburn, who joins us on the line now. Evening, Nigel. Thank you for your time. What's your take on this? Should Mr. Xhaka be apologising?
Yeah, I think I've spoke about this quite a bit over the last few days. For me, I really didn't have a problem with Granit with his reaction in terms of he was unhappy with the supporters. I think for me, what I didn't like particularly was the way that he took his shirt off, as if he was being disrespectful to the shirt and threw it to the ground. He's got to come out, apologise, but also what I'd urge him to do as well is put so much pressure on the manager and say, you know what, I want to be in that team on Saturday at home against Wolves because I want to go out there and show this Arsenal public that I can stand up for myself and I can put in a performance where, rather than booing me, you're now going to be cheering for me. And I think that would be the only way to quickly resolve this situation that is developing day by day, that we don't hear from Granit Xhaka, or he doesn't play in the team. So
I didn't expect him to play tonight, but he's got to somehow make sure that he's playing at the weekend.
And Nige, do you think he's any way back, even if he does apologise, to be the captain?
There's always a way back, no matter how bad it looks. In my time, I fell out with the odd Arsenal supporter, but never on a group stage like this. For me, it's hard at times. I didn't like his reaction, but I can imagine walking off the way he was being booed. He took exception to that. You just got to take it as a captain. You're there to be the focal point. You're there to be the leader. You've just got to suck that up. And as I just said to you, the next game that you come out and perform, you've got to perform to a high level that those supporters are actually saying, oh, okay, well, I didn't agree with what he did last time, but boy, he's showing some spirit here, and the spirit that we need at the football club right now.
Nigel, there's been a lot of chat about the future of the manager as well. Do you still think that Unai Emery is the right man for the job?
Well, I think he's only been in the job a short period of time. I mean, I can only talk about what you're hearing. There are one or two people dissatisfied, but I think Arsenal continue to struggle, and we try to regain a foothold in getting back anywhere near the top of the Premier League, then I think any manager in charge is going to come under pressure. This is Unai Emery's team this season. We're very early in the season. I think we need to let it develop and see where we end at the end of this season. But I'm sure, like everybody, we're not all silly. We know that top four is what's wanted from Arsenal, and if we don't secure that, then Unai Emery will come under big pressure. And the one thing I've always said for quite a while now is we have to sort out our away form, because the last 2 years it's been absolutely dire.
And Nige, what about Mesut Ozil and that away form? Is that a coincidence? Would that be sort of why he's been sidelined and pushed to the back of the queue?
No, I don't think so, Martin. I think, if you, I haven't got the stats, but there's obviously something happened with Ozil and Unai Emery. I think it's more around maybe the training and then the way that he's wanted to play, and maybe Mesut Ozil hasn't been able to adapt to that. But if you were to look at the stats, I think since Ozil has been out the team and in the team away form, I wouldn't think the stats would be too much difference. I don't think we can just throw everything at Mesut Ozil all the time.
Yeah.
He's such a talented player, and when he doesn't reach the heights that we expect him to reach, then he seems to get a lot of the blame. So, do
you reckon he's got to get him back in the team, Nige?
I mean, someone with that quality, I would say to you that he should be at least on the bench. I mean, if you're looking for options where things are not working for you attacking wise, then to me you've got to have all your talented players on the bench, and he's the one that can unpick the locks. If he's at his very, very best, and I think that the rest of his teammates as well. And I've always said that you just keep giving him the ball, just keep feeding him the ball, make sure he's involved in the game, and demand that if you think his work rate coming back's not high enough, then the rest of his teammates have got to demand that from him as well. But even if there's been a fallout, I still think he's good enough in this Arsenal team to be quite part of the squad.
Nigel, are there any other players operating in the Premier League who Arsenal could get their hands on, who you think they should be looking at? Is there anyone who could come into this team and improve things for Emery?
Well, I think first of all, I mean, we spent a lot more money than we expected to spend at the start of this season. You can always look and say we need extra players. I think everybody around at the moment says, we're still defensively, we're looking unstable, and you would have to agree with that. But is that just solely the defenders' fault? Is that because the shield in front of them is not good enough, and we're not working as a unit in front of them good enough? I think there's a lot of things that you can look at. I don't think you can always just keep throwing money at the team and trying to improve it. But we've got to work with what we've got at the moment, and then look at those areas that we want to take to the next level again. And I'm sure Unai Emery and Arsenal will be looking at, I'm not so sure in January, but again at the end of the season, where they need to go to re-strengthen. And as I said to you, first of all, get back into that top four, and then start to at least get somewhere near the two big boys at the moment, which are Manchester City and Liverpool.
Just finally, Nigel, I know you've talked positively about Patrick Vieira, seeing him as a future Arsenal boss. Why do you think he's so good as a manager?
No, I think what I said was that if the club were looking, because when I was doing the interview, they were talking about how Frank Lampard had gone back, how Gerrard had taken over at Rangers and done such a fantastic job. I've been asked the question many, many times about past legends coming back in and managing their club. And what I've said quite openly is that those legends of the club have to prove that they could be a good enough manager. And I think it's a big, big risk to put somebody in that, i.e. Freddie Ljungberg or Arteta has been mentioned a couple of times already in the last couple of weeks, who haven't actually managed the club. Yes, it can work, but also I think if it doesn't go as well as you want it to go, you can come under huge pressure very, very quickly for appointing these types of legends to your club. But Vieira is somebody that's learning his way in management, and I think if he progresses in the right way, then that's somebody that Arsenal will look at in the future if the current manager or the next manager come in is not taking Arsenal in the right direction that they think they should be in.
Nigel, I think it's a great shout. Great to speak to you as well. Thank you for your time. Nigel Winterburn, their former Arsenal defender, giving his take on the current state of things in North London. I want to talk England rugby. We're building up to a World Cup final. Are we worried about Elliot Daly at fullback? There's going to be a lot of kicking, a lot of high balls raining down on him from Faf de Klerk. Can he handle it?
I have to say, Johnny, I know it sounds a bit negative, but I'm not convinced he can. I'm really not. We had Ian Hunter on Love Sport Breakfast this morning, the former England fullback himself. He's going to be here, by the way, right here in the studio. I believe you're here as well, Martin, Saturday morning for the big game. And Ian Hunter's going to be sitting here giving us his analysis, updates throughout the show, of course, as England attempt to win a second Rugby World Cup. He says, I've never been convinced by Elliot Daly, and I think he speaks for a lot of people. He's a brilliant rugby player. He's got fantastic hands. He's got a lovely left boot, and he's so much quicker than you give him credit for, than you think he would be. Just watch that try back from the Wales game in the Six Nations a couple of years ago. Absolutely electric when he gets the space to be, and he's a useful long-range penalty kicker too, but I'm not convinced that under the high ball he's ever really got to grips with the challenge of being an international fullback. And against South Africa in a World Cup final, they are going to mercilessly target him, I'm sure of it, and I'm just not certain he's the right man to do that. And I think you've got an Anthony Watson and Jack Knoll, two players who might be better placed to do the job, and it would be a massive call for Eddie Jones to change it. We're focusing a lot on the Ford or Farrell at number 10, Laws or Cruz in the second row. I just wonder if maybe they'll be thinking at all about doing something different with Elliot Daly. You could even move him out to the wing and still have him in the back three. I just don't quite know if fullback's the right place for him for this game.
I suppose when we're hot favourites like we are, and you're bound to question all these little bits and pieces. But do you not think, Guy, after the performance last week against the All Blacks, that he's basically going to say, roll it out again, same again?
I think
we did play with quality, with the ball in our possession, yeah.
With and without, that's the thing.
With the ball, the quick passing.
Yeah, 100%. And Elliot Daly brings us something. Remember his role in that first try in the second minute? He made two little breaks in the build-up to that try. Look, I want him in the team. I don't quite know about playing at fullback. We'll speak to Paul Morgan from Premiership Rugby to get his thoughts on all this in just a moment. I just wanted to say on the Ford-Farrell debate as well, a lot of people are talking, Eddie Jones, he didn't drop him, he changed his role for the quarter-final.
Changed his role.
Will he change his role again for the final? I hope he doesn't, and I hope for this reason, and it's different to what it was in the Australia game. South Africa picked 6 forwards.
I'm going to have to interrupt you.
What?
Yes, I am here Saturday morning. There's got to be a TV in here with that World Cup final.
There will be. course there will be.
That has got to be on ITV.
It will be.
Oh my God, when we're watching England, I just absolutely
Martin,
love it. I'm going to order my sausage baguette, no, sausage sandwich and cup of coffee, and I am not going to take my eyes off that final.
I thought you might not.
Do you think we've asked you in here to come in and not watch the Rugby World Cup final? Martin, come in and have a chat on Love Sport Radio while there's a World Cup final going on. We're not going to be watching it. Of course it's on the telly.
Do you get up and support England?
Obviously.
Or do you just sit back?
No, I was in the pub on my feet cheering, and it
Hold
would
on,
be
there's
the
the
same.
boss. We need to ask him and make sure the boss gets England on the telly on Saturday morning, else I promise you now, I'm watching it at home.
Where else would it be?
He's nodding.
This is Love Sport.
It's cancer, they said. My first thought, let's just say it wasn't money, but time off work for treatment and trips to the hospital, paying the rent, and. The cost of living doesn't go away just because you're living with cancer, and Macmillan can help with that too. My advice? Take their advice, soon as. I did.
Macmillan, right there with you. Call now or search Macmillan Money Worries.
Are you paying way over the odds for your car insurance? The spiralling costs put people off driving, full stop. But you're a careful driver, and realistically, you'll only need an insurance payout if some halfwit cuts you off on the M1. So you shouldn't be forced to pay massive car insurance premiums. And you don't have to. Go to price comparison site aspokesmansaid.com today and find out the best value car insurance deals on the market. Don't pay the price for not shopping around.
Spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
How are you? How are you really? Modern life can be busy, and sometimes it's easier to look after others before looking after yourself. But there's only one you. And making small changes to your lifestyle now could improve your chances of staying healthier longer. So take the first step to a healthier you with our free How Are You quiz. See how you score and get personalised tips and support. From how to eat a little healthier to turning a 10-minute walk into exercise. Just search One You.
You probably think you're pretty good at multitasking behind the wheel. I mean, you have to multitask to drive. So what's wrong with checking your phone? The thing is, your brain simply doesn't work. Even a quick look at a message, or firing off a quick reply, affects your concentration and makes you less able to react to hazards. If you use a mobile phone while driving, you're 4 times more likely to crash. Think. Put your phone away.
Lots to come on Posh Boys on Drive. We're talking to a member of the Arsenal Supporters Trust. Is his head exploding? And we're also talking to Paul Morgan, rugby writer and communications director for Premiership Rugby, explaining exactly why we're going to win the World Cup against South Africa. First, though, it's the news.
On digital radio, online, mobile, and smart speaker.
This is Love Sport News.
From the Sky News Centre at 6, some relatives of those who died during the Grenfell Tower disaster are calling for criminal proceedings against the London Fire Brigade. Commissioner Danny Cotton insists she won't resign after previously saying she wouldn't have done anything differently on the night. 72 people lost their lives. Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, says he feels families' pain.
I completely understand the frustrations, the concerns, the anger of bereaved families, of survivors and of residents. I think Danny Cotton is right to apologise for the comments she made at the inquiry. She's recognised that she was wrong to say the things that she said.
Jeremy Corbyn and Boris Johnson have clashed in the House of Commons as preparations begin for a December election. The Labour leader criticised the Conservative Party's handling of the NHS, while the Prime Minister claimed the opposition will wreck the economy. A survivor of a helicopter crash at a pub in Glasgow says she disagrees with the findings of an inquiry into the tragedy. It's ruled the incident in 2013 could have been prevented as the pilot ignored low fuel warnings. 10 people died when the Police Scotland aircraft came down onto the Clutha Bar. Mary Kavanagh survived, but her partner Robert didn't.
I was hoping once the findings came out that there would be something that I could say, right, that's what happened. But there's nothing. Absolutely nothing. It leans heavily on pilot error, which I really don't accept that the pilot was wholly to blame.
12 migrants, originally from Syria and Sudan, have been found alive in a refrigerated truck in northern Belgium. It follows the discovery of 39 bodies in the back of a lorry in Essex last week. The Duchess of Sussex has phoned an MP to discuss life in the limelight. Holly Lynch was one of 72 women politicians who sent Meghan a letter saying journalists need to ensure she has a right to privacy. And Michael Jackson's topped a list of the highest earning dead celebrities. He brought in £47 million in the last year. That's the latest. I'm Annie Green.
Love Sport Radio. On digital radio, online, mobile and smart speaker. This is the Posh Boys on Love Sport Drive.
Good evening. You're listening to the Posh Boys on Love Sport Drive. That's me, Johnny Burrow, Guy Watts, and Love Sport's very own Martin Allen. Your top stories this evening. We're talking Arsenal. Granit Xhaka offered counselling after incident against Crystal Palace at the weekend, but he still hasn't apologised to the supporters after appearing to swear at them after walking off the pitch. We're continuing our build-up to England's Rugby World Cup final on Saturday, and we're talking about doping allegations centred around Team Sky and British cycling. But I want to kick us off here talking about another of our main stories this evening, and that is bullying in football from football coaches, often allegedly targeted at younger players. This is with the news that Steve Stone, the Burnley under-23s coach, is being investigated by the club amid claims of bullying. He's been told not to come into work while the investigation is carried out, although he hasn't officially been suspended. He's not the first. This comes after his former boss at Newcastle, Peter Beardsley, was suspended from all football activity for 32 weeks after being found guilty of racial bullying. And there's also been a serious investigation into Cardiff City's youth teams, and in particular the behaviour of Craig Bellamy, which the former Welsh international has since apologised for. So we've got high-profile footballers here of the older generation being accused of bullying. Martin Allen, do you think these guys are bullies, or do you think it's kind of the old culture clashing with a younger, more enlightened generation?
Yeah, I think the latter. What is the definition of bully? What is the definition? How does that word define? Because it's a big word, isn't it?
It is a big word.
Seriously, Johnny, why don't you look that up?
The dictionary definition is seek to harm, intimidate or coerce someone perceived as vulnerable. So there's a distinction there from tough love. You're not treating someone badly with the intention of improving their performance, be that as a writer, a footballer, whatever. You are seeking to harm them.
I don't think any of those people, I know those people. I don't really know Peter Beardsley, but I know Bellamy and I know Steve Stone, and I can't think that they would deliberately set out to hurt young people in training mentally, because we're not talking physically, are we?
No.
We're talking mentally with comments and action to deliberately hurt them. I cannot see that from those two blokes that I know.
But is this where our discussion of kind of cultural changes comes into play? Because it is perfectly possible that Steve Stone has not intended to bully anyone and actually doesn't think he's bullied anyone, but the young players he's been working with feel that he is bullying them.
And it's got to be quite a recent thing, hasn't it? Because Steve Stone, I think, is 48 and Peter Beardsley is something like 58, something like that. So, Martin, not to give anything away too much.
Me right in the middle.
You're somewhere right in the middle, right? But Craig Bellamy is a decade younger, I would say, than Steve Stone. Craig Bellamy's, I'd say, 37, 38, something like that. He's a different generation, really, to you and Steve Stone. If we're, verging on it.
Not sure, Guy.
10 years.
He is.
I'm not sure, though, that age gap would make that much of a difference.
So
it's probably the generation prior to Craig.
So that actually, whether or not, where exactly generations come down, the point is that we're talking about a recent change, aren't we? Because if Craig Bellamy is in his mind, or was in his mind, applying methods that he felt were used on him, and he thinks probably effectively, if he's using them on the people he's paid to improve as footballers, then it is quite a recent thing, isn't it? Because it's only 20 years, or maybe even 15, if we're talking under 23s, as we are in the case of Steve Stone, as we have been in some of the other cases as well. It might only be 15 years or so. That's not a long time.
No.
But has there been, I mean, in your experience of managing as well, the players and their mentalities, the ones that you've managed in the last couple of years compared to the ones you were managing 15, 20 years ago, is it noticeably different?
Yeah, noticeably different. But that's also gone along with the noticeably different style of football.
Okay.
So with possession-based skills, technical drills, improvement in training drills with more football rather than what we would all know as 4-4-2, up to the big man, win the knockdowns, get it wide, get it in the box.
Physical,
everyone could tackle, allowed to intimidate opponents. I had a manager at QPR when I was young called Jim Smith. Oh my God, he had a bald head. And his tie used to always be undone with his suit, his white shirt, and when he used to explode at half time, oh my God, it was a sight. His head would be in my face, pointing in my face, spitting over my face, and if I didn't do what he wanted, I actually got it. There were senior and a lot of internationals in that dressing room, but it would be me, more often than not, as the 19-year-old, who would get it from him. Now, was that bullying, intimidation?
Deliberate intimidation in order to target someone vulnerable. You were pointing out the fact there that you're 19 years old in a dressing room of senior pros. You could have had a go at any of them. He chose you.
Yeah. Yes.
So that was bullying.
No, I don't think it was bullying. I don't personally think it was bullying. I had a choice, Guy. I had a choice. Deal with it, get on with it, and do what he wants, and show him. That was the attitude that had been driven into me from my dad. Show him, get out and show him, or I can't deal with this. I can't deal with this. I don't want to play for him. I'll go and play at another club and go and play lower. And at those days, I'd have gone to another club and it'd have still been exactly the same.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does, yeah. All managers were like
There
that.
is an element, though, with a manager picking on a younger player of emotional intelligence, of judging character. And Martin, correct me if I'm wrong here, but you certainly strike me as quite a robust person, a person who might indeed respond quite well to being challenged, to being had a go at in that way. So it mightn't be that he was looking at the 19-year-old and thinking you're an easy target. It might have been he thought Martin was someone he could get a response out of by effectively winding you up. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, get a fire up his belly, that sort of stuff. He would certainly do that. But there were other people, I think, and probably other people that there's no way they could deal with that. I had it from when I was a little boy, when I was 7 years old. My dad was a coach and a manager, and if I didn't get it right on a Saturday morning as a 7, 8-year-old playing 3 years above himself in under 11 football, even then I was drilled by my dad non-stop to get better, don't do this, you didn't do that. I'd score 4 and he'd say, why don't you score 6? And that was the mentality.
For you as an individual, with other managers, do you think there was an element of your surname, of them knowing who your dad was, who your cousins were? They expected more of you because you're an Allen.
Well, Johnny, that QPR youth team, and people would say QPR now sort of mid-table in the Championship. QPR right at them. We got into the UEFA Cup. We were a proper decent team. Everyone was full internationals. All of the players were brilliant. We were top team in London. We beat all of those. We beat Tottenham. We beat Chelsea 6-0. 6-0, easy, Boxing Day, no problem. We beat Tottenham, we beat Arsenal, we beat West Ham, we beat all the clubs. We were the best. So to actually break through into that team, and I know what you mean about the name, but our youth team and reserve team, we were also the best, and no one could beat us either. So I wasn't because of my name, it didn't really make a great deal of difference.
There's 2 points I think that are worth picking up on in light of the Steve Stone angle to this, which is why we're talking about it today. It's worth pointing out firstly, he's just being investigated. He's not been officially suspended, but he has been told to stay away from the training ground. It's also worth pointing out that his under-23s team at Burnley, where he's been working, are unbeaten in their last 13 matches. He's known to be close to Sean Dyche, the manager, as it says in the piece online. He's clearly trusted by him, and I'm sure they knew each other well as players, played together at Nottingham Forest. And so I think it's worth bearing in mind that clearly his methods, such as they are and have been, which may yet be found to be completely fine, will work on some players. I don't think there's any question that...
They're working on most players, aren't they? If they're unbeaten in 13,
probably.
Let's be fair.
Probably. And Martin, earlier on we spoke about this, and you said the words to the effect of that you think in your time as a coach and a manager, you have been a bully. Since you said that, we've heard the definition, the Oxford English Dictionary definition. I'd like to know if you still think that's the case, and if you think that's the case still, how you would change or have changed your approach in, say, 15 years of being a manager.
Probably not with the little part where Johnny read out you'd pick on people that you'd felt were weak.
Vulnerable, yeah.
Vulnerable. That wasn't the case. More often than not, I would pick on the people that were bigger.
Because that makes more of a point, doesn't
stronger
it?
characters than myself. And I tried to do it that way, having remembered what it was like for me as a 19-year-old when I was at QPR under Jim Smith. I thought at times he should have been having a go at some of the senior players, the bigger players, rather than having a go at me. So when it came the other way round, I thought I'd go the other way, and I would go after the big characters and go and
picked on someone your own size.
Pick on someone bigger.
Okay.
If you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Go for the big boys, get into them, try and spark them.
Yeah.
But more often than not, as time has gone by, I found it was a better way is to talk one-to-one on the quiet rather than full throttle, full blast, effing it and effing it and effing it like you might see on TV. Those days for me have gone.
Yeah, it seems that there are a few coaches out there who could still learn that lesson. Of course, Steve Stone not been found guilty of anything yet, but we followed the Peter Beardsley and Craig Bellamy stories closely, and we'll follow this one closely as well. I want to move on, though, to a very different type of manager. Well, I assume he is a different type of manager to Jim Smith or indeed Martin Allen. He's a very different type of footballer, if I may say. Martin, Diego Maradona, do you remember him?
Oh, I saw him play at 17 at Wembley for England, against England for Argentina. When I saw him coming out of the Wembley tunnel, my school had a trip to the game. He walked out and he had Puma King football boots on, and he didn't have the laces done up. He had oil all over his legs, and he had the stockiest, most tree trunk, and his shorts were far too tight, sky blue. And his chest, he had a T-shirt on. Oh my God, he was totally and utterly ripped
at 17
with
years
power
old.
At 17, and he just walked out with the biggest swagger you've ever seen. His boots, you got to remember, his boots weren't even done up. He was only 17, and it was like, oh my God.
He's 59 today. He's 59. He's
He
put on a
looks
little bit of
about
weight.
80, by the way.
He does. I don't know how
Does
he's
he?
still going. Well, he looks more than 59.
What are you doing, Johnny?
Nothing.
Johnny's picking his nose. What are you talking about, kiddo?
Don't know what you're talking about. He's just aged a bit.
He has aged a little bit, hasn't he? There was a good story, though. It is his birthday today. He got an early birthday present yesterday. He briefly, back in 1993, a long time after you saw him, Martin, he'd gone to see it a little bit even then. He played for Newell's Old Boys, a team in Argentina, who, by the way, play at the Marcelo Bielsa Stadium. And he returned there yesterday. He currently manages a team in Argentina called Gimnasia. And he took Gimnasia back there. And before the game, it sounded absolutely crazy. This happened before the game, right? They had this big sort of ceremony to welcome Diego Maradona back. They had music and they had songs about him, and he joined in with the fans and the dancing before the game. He was then presented with a throne on which he could sit and watch this game.
A literal throne.
A literal throne. He signed the throne.
On the side of the pitch?
Side of the pitch. Instead of the dugout, where the dugout would be, there's a throne for Diego Maradona. He signs it, sits in it, watches the game. What do you think the result was?
Oh, they didn't lose.
They won 4-0.
No.
Happy days. Happy birthday, Diego.
Brutal. Goes back and batters his old club. Do you know who else came through at Newell's Old Boys?
Lionel Messi?
Yeah.
Thought it might
Really?
be.
That is the club in Argentina that Lionel Messi wants to go back to before he retires. So rich history there. There is something
Bit
in
of
the
pedigree,
water,
isn't there?
clearly.
One memory of Diego Maradona, Martin, that you take to your grave. If you had your desert island memory, would it be the handball, or would it be the goal a few minutes later, or would it be something else entirely?
I was watching the goal that he scored from the halfway line with the rest of the QPR team in Florida. We were in Tampa, playing as the Tampa Bay Rowdies. So we all got into our hotel, saw the screen, because Terry Fenwick, our captain and centre-back, was playing.
Yeah.
So we're all watching the game, just sit there watching it. Then that goal happened. I've never seen a better goal. It was unbelievable. Ever? Unbelievable, yeah. Unbelievable. How he went past Peter Reid. He left Peter Reid, and I spoke to Peter Reid about it since. He said just too fast. He said it was too hot, and he was too fast. I said I couldn't get near him. I'd played against Peter Reid, and Peter Reid would always make a tackle wherever he was. But that day, they just could not get near him.
Coming up, we're talking a lot of rugby. How and why are England going to win that World Cup final?
Love sport.
When your kids are ill, you just want to help them feel better. But you don't always need antibiotics. Get advice from your local pharmacy or search NHS Choices.
Full of skill, full of flair, full of desire. Fulham FC is full of fire.
Oh, what a goal!
Be there at Craven Cottage as Fulham continue their surge towards the top of the Sky Bet Championship. Watch the unmissable action live in SW6, home of London's original football club.
Absolutely brilliant.
Grab your tickets now at fulhamfc.com.
Before you set off on a long journey, remember to check your vehicle. Are your tyres correctly inflated? And are the treads deep enough? Have you got enough fuel? Is your oil level right? Checking your vehicle doesn't take long, but can prevent a breakdown or accident and save you money. So, before you set off on a long journey, check your tyres, fuel and oil. Highways England, connecting the country.
If you see somebody showing any of the signs of a stroke, you don't have to think about it, you just dial 999. Use the FAST test. F. Face. Has their face fallen on one side? Can they smile? A. Arms. Can they raise both arms and keep them there? S. Speech. Is their speech slurred? T. Time. Time to call 999 if you see any one of these signs. Act fast, make the call, dial 999.
Brilliant, I've finally quit.
I can keep up with my kids now. I feel like I've got my life back.
It's an amazing feeling when you stop smoking. Experience it for yourself with help from Smoke Free. Our range of free support can help you quit for good. From our app to emails, face-to-face and online communities. Search Smoke Free, because there's only one you.
This is Love Sport.
England are going to win the World Cup final. I'm confident of that now, having got the All Blacks out of the way. Martin Allen was confident that we were going to win the World Cup final even last week when there was the not insignificant task of dealing with New Zealand first. We're joined on the line by Paul Morgan, who's a rugby writer and communications director for Premiership Rugby. Evening, Paul. I gather you remember Martin Allen's confidence from last week, but to be fair on him, it was pretty well placed.
Look, if I had a hat on, I'd be taking it off to him. I've got to admit, Martin was far more confident than me. He read it absolutely right. And I suppose, in my defence, I guess I was just slightly scarred of best part of 20 years going to New Zealand, losing, going to New Zealand, losing, seeing New Zealand come here, seeing them win. So I was a bit scarred by that, and maybe I just carried that through. But fair play to Martin. He was unequivocal. He said England were going to win. And what happened? They won in one of the most incredible rugby matches I think I've ever seen.
Here, Paul, I think this weekend's game is tougher than last Saturday's. I think it's a real tough one for us to win it.
Yeah. Do you know what? After 50 minutes, because England blew the All Blacks away, I think you're right. Because they are a very, very physical team. And I suppose the one thing that I would counter that slightly with is it didn't put Wales away, did they?
No.
And I would have expected England, if England had played Wales last Saturday with that performance, they would have put them away like they did the All Blacks. So South Africa didn't, they've only ended up winning really by almost the smallest margin you can win. So that again makes me think for England. But you're right, so that the Springboks bring a completely different challenge because they are the biggest and most physical team in world rugby. So they bring a different challenge. I think one that England are up for and are capable of matching, though, I must be honest.
But if I saw it that we've peaked last Saturday, and that was us reaching the top of the mountain was beating them, and beating them with such, it was such confidence. We destroyed them. Them. Have we overdone it, if you like? Have we peaked too early? Whereas South Africa, as you say, only just got through, and now they're underdogs and they're going after it. Where we're virtually holding that trophy. Our hands are virtually on it, and they're there now to rob it off of us. I just, you know what I'm saying?
I like your mountain analogy, and what I would say to you, this is a totally different mountain. That's the thing that's in England's favour. This is chalk and cheese to last week. They were playing a skillful ball handling team last week. They're just playing a blunt instrument this week. So it's a completely different challenge, and that's why the peaking is probably not relevant, because, give it an example. If this was Usain Bolt winning the 100 metres last week, he's been asked to do the 400 this week. He's probably going to do it just as well. But it's a different challenge, so I think they can overcome it. And it's about physicality, which we know they've got. They got it. They have got it completely. From Billy Bennapone to Courtney Laws to Maro, they have got the physicality to be able to match them. So I think it's a different challenge, which is why I'm not worrying about the peaking bit, because it's a different route this week.
Paul, if it's such a different challenge, should we still pick the same team?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think Eddie, we talked again last week about how he doesn't settle for a team. And I think going from pool stage matches to quarterfinals, you pick a different team to play the physical Australians as opposed to the kicking game they needed against the All Blacks. But I think if you win a World Cup semi-final, you've got to keep with what you've got, haven't you? You've got to stick. You don't want to twist between the semi-final and final. So I think anyone who's done what they did to the All Blacks has earned their place this week. So if this was going from a quarter-final to a semi, I'm all over changes. But I just think this time you've got to stick with the guys who did that. And I know that there are question marks over George Ford's defence, but the lad has had a World Cup from the end of the world. He has proved what an incredible player he is, and he's got to be given that. I think the pack, it picks itself. You're not going to make any changes there. And the only change you'd make, again, is around about that midfield. But I think they proved last week they can do it. And, he's still got Owen. The kicking game could still be really, really important to England, because they still, if Colby plays for South Africa, potentially the most exciting player in world rugby, they've still got to keep him penned back. So I think you stick with the team this time. I don't think you twist, even though it is a different challenge. I think they can overcome it.
The way I see it, Paul, South Africa keep 6 forwards on the bench, so they pretty much changed their whole pack. It's not like they get a lot less physical as the game goes on. If you bring George Ford on at 60 minutes, it's still going to be a similar level of challenge and physicality. I don't see why you wouldn't give a guy playing such brilliant rugby, as you say, the potential full 80 minutes or at least 60 minutes or so to make his mark on the game. But looking at Eddie Jones specifically as the coach, obviously we've loved what he's done with the team. We've loved what he's done in the press conferences. He's got a contract for another 2 years. We spoke to James Simpson-Daniel earlier. He said if you win a World Cup, he thought, so Clive Woodward obviously got it slightly wrong with staying on afterwards. Would you want Eddie to stay on if we win it? And if we don't win it, would you want him to stay on? Or do you think that either way, this brings a kind of natural end to the Eddie Jones chapter?
Yeah, I mean, it's always strange, isn't it? I think Will Carling actually, I remember, once said to me that the greatest thing you can do is pick the way you go out. So I think for people that we admire, you want them to go out on their own terms and at the top and win a World Cup. And look, it happened to Martin Johnson, didn't it? He won a World Cup and then he retired a year later. I think you'd wish that. You always fear they're going one too far, don't you? And look, he's putting England in a fantastic state. I mean, as you know, I work for Premiership Rugby. I see the pipeline coming through. I see the incredible work the academies are doing. So I think that is all going. Now, look, if he wants to go on to the next World Cup in the RFU do too, you wouldn't deny him that opportunity, of course. But I don't think England should. I don't think England should worry either way. England fans shouldn't worry either way. Eddie has done an exceptionally good job, and if he rides off into the sunset in a couple of years, having done that job, leaving behind him a legacy and a new coaching setup, they'll be fine either way. I think that as I say, the talent is coming through, and we've been able to see it in the Gallagher Premiership when England have been away, still been some fantastic games, and so I think it'll be fine either way. It'll be fine either way.
And looking at that, Paul, just a little bit more, you mentioned the future players you've got coming through. It's brilliant to hear there's more exciting youngsters coming through through. But I know that in 2003 I'm at risk of us getting ahead of ourselves here. But I know that we didn't quite take full advantage of winning that tournament in terms of getting the participation up and the interest in the game as a whole. How important would it be? How big a boost would it be to win it now? And what would be the priorities to make sure that we do make the most of it if it goes to plan on Saturday?
Well, I think the big advantage they've got over the 03 team is this is still a very young team. That one wasn't. That they were coming to, a lot of them, your Neil Backs, Jason Leonard, Martin Johnson, they were coming towards the end of their career. And this isn't the case with that. It's funny today, I saw a quiz online about trying to name the oldest player in the England squad. And I really struggled. I went for Dan Cole. Apologies to Dan. It was Willie Hines in the end, for those that are wondering. But there aren't many over 30 in the team. So I don't think we've got the same problems of 03. And, of course, you learn so much from mistakes you've made in the past. So I think this team will truck on. And there'll be changes. And, gosh, I thought Dan Cole wouldn't make this World Cup as well. So it'll move on. And what I think they will need in 2020 and beyond is 2 or 3 players, not 22 or 23 players. So I think that's the beauty of this team, and I can't believe the same mistakes will be made in 03. So I think the pipeline from the Premiership will really help them, and I think the fact they don't need to reconstruct the team at all. There's plenty of players, and I think that that pipeline is probably best demonstrated by Ben Spencer's call up this week. Unlucky not to be there from the start, and he's going to these kind of guys are going to put loads of pressure on the people in the team. That's a fantastic news for Eddie. We've got 2 Currys out in Japan, and I tell you what, Ben's going to be putting a lot of pressure on Tom really soon to keep his place in the England team. So so there will it looks to me a completely different picture to 03.
Paul, I know you're very confident for Saturday, so I'm not going to ask you who's going to win it, but I am going to ask you how much England are going to win by.
I don't think you win World Cup finals by a lot. I just can't see that historically, really. I mean, even when England turned up to play South Africa in 07 and lost 36-0 to them about 10 days before, they still nearly beat them, and Mark Cueto would tell you that they did beat them. It can't be more than a score, can it, really? It can't. It just... Well, look, I wouldn't put anything past this England team after they did on Saturday, but I can't. It has to be tight because World Cup finals always are, and so it can't be more. I can't imagine a scenario where it's more than a score, but I think they will win.
Perfect weekend, England victory, and Wales to lose.
Well, it's not quite in the weekend, that one. Friday the weekend.
Paul, great.
Great to talk to you.
Great to talk to you, as always. Thank you for your time. Paul Morgan, their rugby writer.
What are you laughing at?
And nothing, Martin. And communications director.
I think they will get a spanking from New Zealand. They've made 9 changes, Wales. They're already practically the walking wounded. They did do well to get so far. You've got to say well done to the little team from Wales. They did awfully well, but I think they're going to get a pasting.
I ain't saying well done to them. Do you think they'll be supporting us on Saturday morning?
Well, I tell you what.
Absolutely no chance.
Yeah, I would have said that, but here was what Warren Gatland had to say, the Wales coach, to England and Eddie Jones ahead of the final.
Yeah, I think it'll be a great final, 2 physical teams, and it'll be nice to see a Northern Hemisphere team win the World Cup, and would have been great if 2 of us were in the final, but it's not to be.
He's saying it through gritted teeth, isn't he? It'd be great to have a Northern Hemisphere team. I'm not quite convinced, but he said the right things.
He absolutely did. We're going to be talking Arsenal in just a moment. They, of course, take on Liverpool tonight in the League Cup. We got some Liverpool team news for you, and it is a youthful side. Kelleher in
probably
goal.
Still beat you.
Yeah, they will, I'm sure. A back 4, rather ruined in its youthfulness by James Milner. Otherwise, it's Williams, Gomez and Vanden Berg. A midfield 3 of Lallana, Keita and Oxlade-Chamberlain, with a front 3 of Elliott, Origi and Brewster. 2 teenagers up front for Liverpool. Surely even Arsenal's defence can handle that.
I wouldn't be so sure, Johnny. You have got Harvey Elliott up against you. Obviously cleared after his 14-day ban for that social media video. Still, though, as far as I've seen, with the worst haircut in football.
Worst of all time, I would suggest.
Maybe the worst of all time.
Have we got the Arsenal team up yet?
We haven't yet. They haven't released it. We will have it for you as soon as... In fact, they've released it as Martin asked that question, as if by magic.
Do you want a moment to digest it, Johnny? We'll bring it to you in a couple of minutes' time.
Let's go for that.
This is Love Sport.
Think the energy price cap will save you money? Think again. you could be saving a lot more on cheaper energy tariffs. Price comparison site A Spokesman Said will show you just how much money you could be saving against your current tariff. Don't throw away your hard-earned money to the energy companies. Check out aspokesmansaid.com and you could switch to cheaper bills in minutes.
Thespokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
Digital radio offers great sound quality and more stations than ever before. And we want to make sure that you get Love Sport on your digital radio. Just press the auto tune or auto scan button and Love Sport will appear on your menu. Love Sport on digital radio.
Making small changes to your lifestyle could improve your chances of staying healthier longer. Start now by taking our free How Are You quiz. Just search 1U.
Home insurance is vital. You don't want to end up paying through the nose when something goes wrong. But are you being charged way too much for your home cover? Are your insurance premiums simply too much to bear? It doesn't have to be that way. A spokesmansaid.com is a price comparison website that trawls the internet to find the best deal for you. Don't pay the price for not shopping around. Visit a spokesmansaid.com and start saving today.
Thespokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
Whoa! Look how much saturated fat is in these chocolate biscuits. It's surprising how much is in our food and drinks. For us kids, eating too much saturated fat can lead to harmful fat building up inside, which we can't see, increasing the risk of heart disease or stroke when we get older. So be food smart. Download the free Change for Life food scanner app and start making healthier choices today.
There are many things a mother can pass on to her baby. Her smile, her eye colour, and her immunity to whooping cough. Whooping cough is a very dangerous illness for young babies, and at the moment it's spreading fast. A simple vaccination during your pregnancy can help to protect your baby in their first weeks. Please speak to your GP, nurse, or healthcare professional and pass on your immunity.
As a busy mum, you're juggling loads of things. And when your kids are ill, you just want to help them feel better. But you don't always need antibiotics to help them get better. For things like sore throats, coughs and colds, you can get advice from your local pharmacy. And you don't need an appointment. To find your nearest pharmacy, search NHS Choices.
Love Sport.
We've got the Arsenal team news, as promised. We have digested it, and we have digested the biggest news of all, which is Mesut Ozil back in that side. He starts. It's backup keeper Martinez in net, a back four of Bellerin, Holding, Mustafi and Kolasinac, a midfield three of Torreira, Willock, who I know Martin is very keen on, Maitland-Niles, who was roundly slaughtered by Arsenal fans the last time he played in midfield, and an exciting front three, you would have to say, of Ozil, Saka and Martinelli, the lethal teenage Brazilian. We'll get
Martin Allen.
Martin Allen.
Oh, sorry.
Lethal teenage Brazilian. You've gone for Martin Allen.
Gabriel Martin Allen.
We're going to be dissecting that with Akil Vass, board member of the Arsenal Supporters Trust, very shortly. First of all, our very own Guy Watts has all your latest headlines and weather.
Ainsley Maitland-Niles was slaughtered. I can't remember the last time an Arsenal player actually got praised for the game he played. You could score a hat-trick.
Martinelli, every time he is the golden child.
What's Aubameyang's long-term plan? Why doesn't Lacazette get more assists in October? I'm annoyed that
I defended Aubameyang.
Kolasinac gets his assists from inside his own half. He should do. I'm absolutely sick of it, to be honest. But anyway, the sports headlines. Darren Gough has been confirmed as a bowling consultant ahead of England's Test series against New Zealand next month. The former fast bowler took over 200 wickets in Tests and one-day internationals for the national team. He'll work with England's current teamers during the warm-up matches for the longer form contest. Don't forget a couple of big games in the League Cup fourth round tonight. Chelsea hosting Man United at Stamford Bridge. Arsenal travelling to Anfield to face Liverpool. Aston Villa taking on Wolves as well. And Wales head coach Warren Gatland has made 9 changes to his team for their Rugby World Cup third playoff game against New Zealand on Friday. Owen Lay, Nicky Smith and James Davis are amongst the players to come into the side. Lee Halfpenny, George North, Thomas Francis and Aaron Wainwright all missing out with injuries. The Test will be Gatland's final game in charge of Wales, having won 4 Six Nations titles and 3 Grand Slams since taking over in December 2007. Weather tonight, rain for parts of southern England and South Wales, mainly dry elsewhere with clear spells and a patchy frost. The odd shower on the east coast. Tomorrow, dry for most with some sunshine, cloudy across parts of southern England and South Wales with early rain easing. highs of around 13 degrees or so. That's the latest for you here on Love Sport Drive.
Thanks, Guy. Great stuff. Talking Arsenal, we were discussing a moment ago Maitland-Niles, who got a real kicking from Arsenal fans for his performance in central midfield versus Vitoria. Martin, your response was to say, A, he's young, B, he came through the academy. Do those two things mean you should get more gentle treatment?
Well, what you forget to mention, Johnny, is the Arsenal fans slaughtered. I mean, how bad does that sound?
They took
Get
him
your
to
head round it.
pieces.
You know, what was that little right back they had a few years ago, Abue, who
Yeah.
seemed like a hard-working, honest, humble person, a decent bloke. I don't think he played, did he? And Arsene Wenger took him off after half an hour because he was having such a bad time and all the fans absolutely annihilated him. Slaughtered. What a terrible word for these people to have. That's terrible.
It is.
When you say it like that, it's terrible.
But that is what
and
happened.
the fact he's come through your own club's academy and he's probably an hard-working, decent lad. He's a nice lad, isn't he, that Maitland-Niles?
He is a nice lad. He is a nice lad.
Slaughtered. How terrible for the poor kid.
Yeah, it was. I mean, there were lots of tweets saying, listen, he should never play midfield again. This is why he's not good enough to be a midfield player.
Yeah, well, that's not too bad. I saw some tweets the other day about Granit Xhaka asking, hope he gets cancer and hope his wife dies and hope his baby's ill and all those types of things. Absolutely disgusting. Those tweets were put in front of me on a sheet here at Love Sport. Crikey, can't they get somebody to, must have a screw loose to have to write stuff like that. Must have.
Well, particularly when we have players like Maitland-Niles getting absolutely slated without doing much wrong, and some players who have misbehaved seemingly getting away with it, which is, as some people believe, the case at Derby County. Of course, still reacting to that terrible incident in which 2 players were found guilty of drink driving and banned from getting behind the wheel for 2 years. The most serious repercussion of that is club captain Richard Keogh, who has done both his ACL and MCL. He's out for 15 months probably, with his contract set to expire this summer. Derby are now saying, take a pay cut or we're going to sack you for bad behaviour. What's your take on this?
Bit shocked, really, Johnny. I'm not actually sure they can sack him for bad behaviour because he was in the back of the car. He wasn't driving a car. Yes, he had alcohol, but he was on a trip out where the manager and the football club had agreed it was okay for the players to go out and drink alcohol. There's nothing in his contract as the captain that says that he's got to stop other players from driving their cars if they've been drinking. So I think the club would find it very, very difficult after they haven't sacked the other 2 players that were driving their cars. I think they'd find it very, very difficult to do him for gross misconduct when they've set a precedent by allowing the other 2 players who were driving the vehicles drunk to continue and play for Derby in their team.
Obviously, all 3 of them are total morons. Anyone who gets behind the wheel of a car after having a skinful is a moron. Anyone who gets in the car with someone driving who's had a skinful is a moron. That said, it doesn't mean you deserve to have your career ended. And if I were Richard Keogh, and he's apparently been given 14 days to decide whether to accept the reduction or go for the sacking and no doubt the ensuing court case, if I had to take the pay reduction, I would turn right round to Tom Lawrence, who was driving the car, and Mason Bennett, who was driving the other car, said, lads, are you chipping in then to make up my salary? Because they're all in it together, aren't they?
No, I don't agree with that, Johnny. He made a decision to get into the back of that car, nobody else. He had a choice whether he got in or he didn't get in. He had a choice also when all the other players left earlier in the evening to go home in a club car. And be chauffeured home or taxied home, whatever you want to say. So no, why should he go to the other players and say it's his choice? He wasn't forced to get into the car. He had the option of going in a club car that was laid on, and it's no wonder the owner of the football club is absolutely furious. And on £1.3 million a year, I bet the owner's absolutely tear his hair out.
If you were the manager, given all of this media circus, would you be pleased to have Wayne Rooney coming into the club, or would you be dreading it?
Oh, God, pleased. I bet you can't wait for somebody. After losing Harry Wilson and Mason Mount and Tomori, 3 fantastic loans. And that is always the problem, by the way, Johnny. If you loan good players and you've got a good team, and then all 3 players, I mean, those 3 must be worth... What, that's got to be like 400 million, isn't it, for those 3?
Yeah,
got to be. So to take that out of your first team and then expect to do well, that is always a problem when you're a club that loans other clubs' players. What's going to happen after? What's going to follow? And Derby have got that problem. The only person that can probably fix it is, at the moment, Wayne Rooney, who might be able to score them some goals, who might be able to create some goals, because at the moment they are looking like a bang average mid-table team.
And who did Wayne Rooney score his first Premier League goal against? Arsenal Football Club. It was a screamer. They've got a crisis of their very own, and we're joined on the line by Akil Vyas, board member of the Arsenal Supporters Trust. Good evening, Akil. Thanks for joining us. Why hasn't Granit Xhaka apologised yet, and can he still win the fans back?
It's a good question. I mean, he certainly should have. I thought he probably should have on Sunday, and if not Sunday, certainly by Monday. So the fact that we're now into Tuesday, Wednesday, and about to play a game, it is quite bizarre that he hasn't yet. Can he win the fans back? I mean, it's all about performances on the pitch. You know, if the next time he plays, he has a 9 out of 10 or a 10 out of 10 game, then suddenly, you know, football fans, all we want is performances at the end of the day. So if he can do that, he has a chance, but I certainly think he needs to say something first.
Akil, and it's probably likely now that he's not going to be your captain. Amongst the rest of the players that you've got, who do you think would be the outstanding person to take on that role?
It's a real tough one, because, I mean, there's no one that really stands out, is there? And there probably hasn't been at Arsenal for a while. And Unai Emery says he has 5 captains, yet Xhaka was one. Mesut Ozil is another who hasn't played, and, you know, he's in the squad tonight, so we might see him. Hector Bellerin's coming back from a kind of long-term injury. And then you've got your kind of 2 front men up front who, you know, as a striker, to be a captain, I'm not always sure it works. So, you know, there aren't many in there. I mean, I guess if you look at experience, it probably is someone like David Luiz, but he hasn't been at the club very long. He's made mistakes this season as well. So it's a real tough one. I mean, you know, if I had to pick one of the 5 that Unai Emery selected, I probably would go Hector Bellerin, just because I think he's the most mature out of the lot. I think he's been here a while, so he understands the club, he understands the values of the club, and he's kind of been through quite a bit here. So he would probably be my captain. But again, I'm not sure there's much of a choice.
No, it's a tough one. We were chatting earlier, and I thought to David Luiz, with his experience, but the only problem with him, and they've all got negatives, let's not kid ourselves, they've all got negatives, is he basically gives a goal away a game, doesn't he?
Exactly.
That's his trait.
Yeah, and also with kind of Rob Holding coming back.
How good is he?
Rob Holding?
Yeah.
He's, they often say that, when the player's injured, they
always seem better, yeah.
Because, yeah. But, I mean, Rob Holding was doing really well before his injury. He obviously, under sort of Arsene Wenger in his final season, he played a fair bit. He played in the cup final and had an absolutely massive game under pressure. And even last season, he was playing really well before his injury at Old Trafford. I do think Rob Holding is going to be a real player for this football club. And actually, on pure ability, I actually think he's probably the best we've got. But obviously, he needs time. He's still quite raw. He's had a long-term injury. But I'm convinced that once he gets some game time behind him, he will be sort of as part of our first 11. And then you've also got Callum Chambers coming through, and it's a big season for him as well. He's had a few loan spells. It's sort of now or never for him. So you could think that in a few months, could see Holding and Chambers as your kind of centre-backs. And then if you've given your captaincy to someone like David Luiz, he might not be playing much anyway. So that again comes into your thinking that your captain should probably be someone who is going to be one of your first names on the team sheet. And David Luiz probably won't be, or might not be, certainly in a few months.
Akil, as a member of the Supporters Trust, How do you feel when you see the behaviour of the fans on Sunday with reference to Xhaka? How do you feel when you see the footage of them swearing at Aubameyang in his car? Because I'm an Arsenal fan, and at the moment, I'm feeling pretty ashamed of the fan base.
Yeah, really disappointing. I mean, it doesn't matter whether I sit on the board of the trust or not. Just as a supporter that goes home and away, it's really disappointing. And you know, to be, I mean, as much as Granit Xhaka's reaction wasn't good, and it wasn't good, and he shouldn't be doing that, and he should have apologised quicker, and he should know better. And he's a captain of our football club. He every time he's got substituted this season, there's been a bit of a sarcastic applause. There's been chants sung about him by his own fans. And, you know, he's probably only human, and he's reacted at a time when it's just got a bit too much for him. And you know, that's not really support. You know, I think it was Darren Bent that was talking on TV a couple of days ago, and he said there's an away player. And when you go in to play somewhere at somebody else's ground, and if they're having to go at their own players, you think, oh, this is great as an away player because we're going to get let off here. You're not intimidated, you're not really feeling it. There's no real advantage for the home team, and that's what's happening with someone like Granit Xhaka, where if you're putting so much pressure on your own player and your own central midfielder, then you know the other team have a great day. So I just don't think it helps. With Aubameyang, you know, you're always going to get some isolated kind of, you know, whether they're fans or whether they're just people walking the streets kind of on the off chance. You know, you're always going to get a little bit of, you know, get people like that. So I'm sure Aubameyang will just kind of put that down to an isolated incident. But with Xhaka, it was obviously, you know, it kept happening. And, you know, booing your own players and all that. I mean, you know, I'm all up for... you know, being critical of players when they don't play well, and Xhaka probably hasn't had the greatest season and stuff. But I think you need to support your own. You know, you're kind of. It doesn't help when you don't, and you're ultimately giving the opposition team a bit of an advantage by doing that. And I don't think people look at it that way, but I think you actually are. So it's not great.
And the team for your game tonight has just come through, and Mesut Ozil is playing, believe it or not. Yeah. What do you think of that?
Yeah, it's. I mean, it's again, it's quite a strange one because you know, Mesut Ozil hasn't played much this season. Certainly hasn't kicked the ball for about 5-6 weeks, and you're playing him at Anfield against potentially the future champions, or certainly the champions of Europe. And I know their team will be a bit different as well. But the fear I have is if Mesut Ozil doesn't have a good game, then suddenly the critics are back. But is this a fair game to judge him on? I'm not sure. You know, I would have loved to seen him against Palace for a little while, against Bournemouth a few weeks ago, because this team severely lacks sort of that creative kind of energy and that creative ability. So, I mean, I'm encouraged to see Mesut Ozil back. I know that he's taken a fair share of criticism, and I know his style isn't quite, you know, doesn't quite do it for everyone. But the facts remain: Arsenal struggle to create chances. Arsenal struggle.
Oh, I think we might have lost Akil there. Akil, great to talk to you. Thank you for your time. If you are with us, but I think we had a signal
He had good
problem.
knowledge, didn't he? Well, I liked our chat with him.
Absolutely. Akil Vyas, their board member of the Arsenal Supporters Trust, giving his take.
When you say board member, is he bored?
Well, he might be if the game tonight doesn't live up to expectations. If you're listening to us, you certainly haven't been bored, and you won't be bored from 7 o'clock, because Charlie Hawkins is coming up, and in just a moment's time, we're going to find out what wonderful delights he has in store for you.
Giving your team a voice. Love Sport Radio.
You're in leakage, you're in leakage. You're in leakage, you're in leakage. You're in leakage. You're in leakage, you're in leakage.
Kenna men. Pants and pads.
You're
discreet. Masculine.
You're
secure absorption zone. Buy online or in shops.
You're
Tenna men. Keep control.
Urine?
No.
Hi, I'm Barry. I'm a retired school bursar from Chingford. I thought I was paying too much for my energy and went onto a spokesmansaid.com and found that I could reduce my costs overall by £568 per annum, and I'm very grateful for that help.
with a spokesmansaid.com. Fighting for you, saving you money.
When your kids are ill, you just want to help them feel better. But you don't always need antibiotics. Get advice from your local pharmacy or search NHS Choices.
As a parent, you always want to protect your kids, so make sure their vaccinations are up to date. Measles and whooping cough are on the rise and can cause severe illness, but childhood vaccinations can help prevent them. Are your child's up to date? Find out more. Search online for NHS vaccinations.
Oh, it's okay. Let's face it, when your kids are ill, you'd do anything to help them feel better. But remember, antibiotics aren't always needed. You might not realise it, but taking antibiotics when you don't need them puts you and your family at risk of a longer and more severe illness. Help keep your family well. Always take your doctor's advice on antibiotics. Search NHS antibiotics. All better.
This is Love Sport.
It's Martin Allen's favourite part of the show because Charlie Hawkins is in the building. He's going to be carrying you forward from 7 o'clock for the Draw fan shows. Charlie, what's coming up?
Coming up first is the Newcastle fan show. 1-1 with Wolves on the weekend. They could have got all 3 points. They played really well in the first half. The second half, obviously, Wolves come on strong. And that error from Dubravko is really solid for Newcastle. He's a really good keeper. I rate him highly.
Signed a 6-year deal.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that 6-year deal because how will that work? I know keepers can obviously play a bit longer, but if they want to ship him off 6 years, they can't, can they?
Yeah, you just keep him as backup.
If he's on £500 a week, it's a great deal.
It's a great deal, yeah. Well, we never know up with Mike Ashley at Newcastle, do we? We don't quite know.
Mike Ashley?
Yeah, well, this is it. The fans want him out. We're going to be talking a lot about that because there has been developments with Strawberry Place. We're going to be talking about the Longstaff red card as well. So it will be a packed show tonight, and we always get a few callers, so I'm looking forward to it.
That'll be class from 8 o'clock. It's Leighton Orient. Another draw.
1-1 again, familiar scoreline on the Wednesday fan shows tonight. Orient, it was the first home game for new man Cole Fletcher. They took the lead again early for a penalty. Brophy went down. Not sure if it was a penalty. I don't know how Orient will feel about that one, but they got it either way. Carlisle felt they could have had a penalty. Carlisle, 4 games they've lost on the spin. They come on really strong again in the second half. Leighton Orient just can't get over the line at the minute. They're just, it's a cliche, but two halves, 2 performances with them. They just can't seem to get over the line. Cole Fletcher's still searching for that first win, and Presley has managed to stop the rock.
He's only had 2 games, hasn't he?
He's had 2 games, yeah. Well, he can't get the win yet, can he? It's 2 games. He hasn't got a win, has he?
Well, he can't get. He hasn't had a bit to get a win.
Excuse me, you're right,
He's been going 12 games. No, 2.
Well, he hasn't got the win there. No, he can't get the win. He hasn't got the win.
Martin Allen there, board member of the Managers Union. He will stand up for any manager.
I thought he was meant to be
in
my
any
friend.
context. No.
Sometimes, Charlie, I used to listen to, and he hasn't won. He hasn't won a game now for 2 games.
I meant he hasn't won, not he can't win. Come on.
What you learn very quickly with Martin is that he loves you above all else until you challenge a manager. Then you're under pressure.
But I've never challenged any manager, have I, Mark? And we're friends.
But Johnny, every day, every manager that doesn't win one game, do you think the manager's under pressure?
The thing is, lads,
like Winston Churchill talking on the line. That's why he's called the boss boy.
We'll put them under pressure on the beaches. I just demand excellence, okay? From 9 o'clock, it's the Fulham fan show.
It is the Fulham fan show. Johnny, the score was 0-0.
One for the purists.
Yeah, and what a game it wasn't, because there won't be much to talk about apart from obviously the sending off for Rodak, the Fulham keeper.
Yeah, a lively one, and somehow Mr. Bettinelli finding a way to get back into the team, whatever happens.
Yeah, unbelievably. But we're going to be talking about that, and obviously the run they've been on, because we've missed the Fulham fan show over the last couple of weeks because they've been playing on that same day. So there is a few games to look at. That 3-2 victory against Luton, obviously last week, and it's always a lively one with them. We do the 3-word reviews and listener questions, so it should be, as always, a fun one.
Top stuff. Wolves from 10 o'clock. You're talking about that Newcastle game from a Wolves perspective. Bit of a let-off for them.
Well, I don't know. Again, it was a tale of two halves, wasn't it? And Wolves, let's not forget they were playing after they were playing in Europe. They've got to work out how they, this Thursday to Sunday is a quick turnaround. And if you haven't done it, it is very difficult for teams to do. And obviously, Wolves are in action tonight against Villa, and that's a big rival game in the Carabao
Huge.
Cup.
Lots to look forward to. You'll have updates throughout the Carabao Cup fixtures as well, and talking Old Firm from 10:30. Charlie, sounds like some crackers. We'll be listening on our respective ways home. And for now, Guy Watts has some breaking news.
I do, Johnny, yeah. So it's a development on the story we've been talking about this afternoon, the Richard Keogh one. And it's not confirmed at this stage, but David Heitner from The Guardian has an exclusive saying that Derby have sacked their club captain, Richard Keogh, a month on from that infamous car crash. They're saying that he's been left distraught after he was sacked on Wednesday. He was apparently offered, as we were sort of saying earlier, a reduction. Not just a reduction, though, on his £1.3 million a year wages. He was offered just a fraction of what he was on previously. It was unacceptable to him, apparently, to remain there on that deal. And he has apparently now instructed his lawyers in the matter, and the Professional Footballers Association has also become involved. So that is one that is clearly got some way to run yet.
This is going to get very, very lively because the lawyers will be in straight away. And the first point they'll be making is Martin Allen's very, very good one. If you're sacking me, why are you not sacking Tom Lawrence and Mason Bennett? Because you're not sacking him for getting injured on paper. You're sacking him for misbehaving. They were the ones driving. It's sack all three or sack none, surely.
Yeah, I don't know what the rules are, but the precedent has been set. And as you say, this is going to be an interesting one.
Well, it's been an interesting show, Martin. Guy, always a pleasure to spend 4 hours in your company. Stick with us on Love Sport. I'm not joking. Stick with us on Love Sport for the fan shows. The Posh Boys are back from 3 p.m. tomorrow.
Love Sport.
Making small changes to your lifestyle could improve your chances of staying healthier longer. Start now by taking our free How Are You quiz. Just search 1U.
Brilliant. I've finally quit.
I can keep up with my kids now.
I feel like I've got my life back.
It's an amazing feeling when you stop smoking. Experience it for yourself with help from Smoke Free. Our range of free support can help you quit for good. From our app to emails, face-to-face and online communities. Search Smoke Free, because there's only one you.
Before you set off on a long journey, remember to check your vehicle. Are your tyres correctly inflated? And are the treads deep enough? Have you got enough fuel? Is your oil level right? Checking your vehicle doesn't take long, but can prevent a breakdown or accident, and save you money. So, before you set off on a long journey, check your tyres, fuel, and oil. Highways England, connecting the country.
As a parent, you always want to protect your kids, so make sure their vaccinations are up to date. Measles and whooping cough are on the rise and can cause severe illness, but childhood vaccinations can help prevent them. Are your child's up to date? Find out more. Search online for NHS vaccinations.
If you fall asleep at the wheel, you'll put your life in danger, and the lives of others as well. Before you feel tired, pull off the road into a services or other safe area. Drink some strong coffee, and take a quick nap while the caffeine kicks in.
If you're having a nap, you've left your lights on.